Chapter 469. Humph. Empty words with no proof. If you want to understand these things, you can still find out a thing or two. Song Cheng was not so easy to fool. The main reason was that when he was passionate about teaching disciples, he was hurt too deeply. Now, it seemed that everyone was teasing him and mocking him. However, Luo Qingtong's words had indeed moved him. He was willing to give her a chance. Since you want to learn inscriptions so much. Sure. 3 days later, the academy will hold a competition for the reward for the top new student. At that time, 10 weapons will be taken out. I will add in an inscription tool that I have drawn. If you can find it and snatch it, I will believe that you really want to learn inscription techniques. Otherwise, go where you want to go in the future and don't bother me. How about it? Song Cheng raised his head and looked at Luo Qingtong. He had an expression that said, if you can't even meet such a request, then get lost. He was not worried that Luo Qingtong would not be the top new student. The other party was obviously a new face and was so powerful. Among the new students, no one could beat her. No matter where she came from, she would definitely be the top student. Okay. Luo Qingtong looked at him and smiled. However, I also have a request. She looked at Song Cheng and said, if I meet your request, I will only learn inscription techniques and will not take you as my master. Luo Qingtong set this condition first. She did not want to take someone else as her master. One accident like Tian Mingzi was enough. There was no need for a second one. Humph. You wish. You want to take me as your master, but I don't want to take you as my disciple. Song Cheng snorted. At this time, he still did not know that he would beat his feet and beat his chest because of this sentence in the future. He wished that he could go back in time and eat these words back. A good disciple that he had gotten. He had lost her just like that. In the end, he could not get her back no matter how hard he tried. It really made people sad and cry. Okay, then this matter is settled. You can go now. After speaking, Song Cheng waved his sleeves and sent Luo Qingtong out. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she stood in the hallway of the mentor's dormitory. Instructor, since you've already sent me out, can't you send me a little further away and at least let me leave the instructor's dormitory? Fortunately, no one bumped into her. Otherwise, she would be charged with breaking into the instructor's dormitory at night. She would not be able to participate in the competition for the top prize of the freshmen 3 days later. However, Luo Qingtong had not expected Song Cheng to be so strong. Fortunately, she had not thought of using force. Otherwise, not only would he fail to learn the inscription pattern technique, but he would also inexplicably provoke a Sage Realm enemy. Luo Qingtong patted her chest and leaped out of the instructor's dormitory. Why didn't you let me out earlier? When she left the mentor's dormitory, Yi Qianxian crawled out from her sleeve. He's an expert above the Sage Realm. It's very likely that he will hurt you. Yi Qianxian looked at her with a frown. Luo Qingtong hugged him and kissed him on the lips. You also know that he's an expert above the Sage Realm. What if he knows you? You're just a divided soul now. Don't always act like a high lord. If you're caught by someone and your soul is refined or something like that, your original body will also suffer. Luo Qingtong knew that in this world, there were many methods to deal with souls. She did not understand the realms above the Sage Realm, nor did she know what methods they used. However, she knew that if this divided soul of Yi Qianxian fell into the hands of someone who had a grudge against him, it would cause great harm to him through this divided soul. Since she had imprisoned this divided soul of Yi Qianxian, she had the responsibility to protect him. Chapter 470. Humph, little Ming Zun looked at her and snorted proudly, I'm not as weak as you think. Others want to capture a wisp of this sovereign soul? Dream on. It wasn't that he couldn't break free from the shackles of the heart of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. It was just that he might hurt the woman who was connected to the heart of the 1,000-year soul guiding wood. Did this woman really think that he was that weak? As for his original body, even if his meridians were severely injured and he only had 30 to 40% of his strength left, there weren't many experts on this continent who could hurt him. This woman loved to worry for nothing. Although he thought so, Yi Qianxian liked the feeling of being cared for by Luo Qingtong. Yes, yes, yes. You're the best in the world. Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh. Little Ming Zun's arrogant and narcissistic look was too cute. Was Yi Qianxian like this when he was young? Luo Qingtong imagined it and thought of that man chasing after her with a black face. She couldn't help but laugh. If Yi Qianxian knew that his divided soul had such a dark history after being imprisoned, would he be so angry that he would vomit blood? He would probably spend more money to chase after her. But she didn't regret it at all. It'll be great if you can stay by my side in the future. It didn't matter if it was like this now. Luo Qingtong looked at little Ming Zun with curved eyes and leaned over to peck his lips. Then I can hide you forever. Yi Qianxian now belonged to her alone. Humph, Yi Qianxian snorted and didn't argue with this woman. Anyway, she felt that the original body wouldn't let her go after catching her. It was useless for her to say anything. Let her think so. It'll be fine when the original body comes. But then again, why did the original body take so long to investigate the wisp of holy brush spirit? Was there an accident, and the holy brush spirit wasn't in the holy court of the Empire of Qin? The divided soul had all the thoughts of the original body. Every move was no different from the original body. In an instant, little Ming Zun understood the reason for the accident. At the same time, outside the clouds, blood stained the yellow sand, bones in the forest, and the sound of fighting was endless. The sound of blades, bloody frost, and mournful screams were endless. Numerous powerhouses from all over the true Spill continent had gathered in this mystic realm. For the sake of the treasures that had appeared in this world, they would fight each other to the death, turning this place into a bloody slaughterhouse. The battlefield closest to the outskirts of the outside the clouds had just ended. The victorious party supported each other and were about to leave. At this moment, on the peak of a distant mountain, at the entrance of the land beyond the clouds, a whirlpool suddenly appeared. Someone else is coming. The group of powerhouses looked warily at the entrance. Of them, Dark Venerable? Looking at the silver-robed, black-haired, golden-masked man who jumped down from the top of the mountain like a god, the group of powerhouses were all stunned. The man wore a silver robe with golden embroidery. In the dark, he was noble and extraordinary. His aura was overbearing and difficult to describe. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from everyone's sight with the Dark Regions group, leaving them standing there in shock. The Supreme of the Black Field had also come to the outside the clouds. Didn't he never participate in the fight for the treasures that had appeared? However, they didn't know that Yi Qianxian was here for the treasures in his heart, Luo Qi. This time, I won't give you a chance to escape. Chapter 471. Luo Qingtong brought little Ming Zun back to the dormitory of the lower class. Just as they passed through an aisle of Tianyu Branch Academy, they suddenly heard a muffled roar from the dark woods. Depression, despair, resentment. The smell of death spread. Luo Qingtong's senses were sharp. She turned to look at the woods. Immediately, she saw a person lying on the ground. On the other side, a young man was leaning against a big tree, panting. Noticing Luo Qingtong's gaze, the young man suddenly raised his head and looked at her fiercely. His pair of eyes that were as silent and oppressive as midnight were now filled with hatred, despair, and killing intent. He was seen. Sima Zhu looked at Luo Qingtong fiercely. The killing intent in his heart was overwhelming. At that moment, he wanted to kill Luo Qingtong who had seen him kill people. But soon, the killing intent in his eyes disappeared. With his current body, it was impossible to kill people. Not to mention, the other party was not afraid of the poison in his body. Call for help if you want. He looked at Luo Qingtong indifferently. Then, he looked away. It didn't matter if he was expelled from the academy or killed by revenge. Anyway, his cursed body couldn't live for long. He was reaching his limit. Sima Zhu lowered his head and looked at the black skin exposed by the torn cloth. Compared to before, it was darker. The darker the color, the stronger the poison accumulated in his body, and the stronger the backlash against him. Now, he was gradually unable to resist the invasion of the poison. Anyway, he was going to die. It didn't matter how he died. Luo Qingtong glanced at the person lying on the ground. She recognized that he was the leader of the group that chased Sima Zhu during the day. She didn't expect that he would come to find trouble with the other party at night and lose his life. Not interested. She looked indifferent. Then, she raised her hand and threw a bottle over. Corpse dissolving liquid. If you have nothing to do, clean up the body. Don't let people find out. Why? Sima Zhu was ready to close his eyes and wait for death. But suddenly, he heard Luo Qingtong say so. He opened his eyes and saw the bottle of corpse dissolving liquid thrown at him. He immediately reached out and caught it. That pair of deep and silent eyes stared at Luo Qingtong. What do you want? Why did she help him cover up the fact that he killed people? He and she didn't have any friendship at all. Wasn't it? In fact, the matter of Sima Zhu being killed in the advanced class could be solved. But after thinking about it, Luo Qingtong felt that the other party's body of all poisons was very valuable. This was the first time she had seen such a heaven-defying physique. She really wanted to know what kind of terrifying strength the 10,000 poisons body would possess once it was controlled and erupted. Of all Xian Zhu had always liked to. Just think of it as for your body. Luo Qingtong looked at him and said. I'm very interested in your body. Before she finished speaking, Sima Zhu had already taken a big step back. He looked at her with resentment and shame. Don't even think about it. Luo Qingtong looked at him unhappily. I'm talking about the poison in your body. Who took a fancy to his body? If anyone took a fancy to it, it should be Yi Qianxian, okay? Chapter 472. 10,000 Poison Body. Luo Qingtong looked at Sima Zhu with narrowed eyes. Your physique is very special, I'm very interested in it. If you're willing, I can help you control the poison in your body and solve the hidden dangers in your body. But the price is that you'll sell yourself to me in the future and listen to my orders. If you can accept it, then come and find me. If you can't, then pretend I didn't say anything. As she spoke, she turned around and left. Luo Qingtong wasn't a saint. She would help the other party, but the other party had to pay the price. Luo Qingtong didn't need Sima Zhu to recognize her as his master, but he had to guarantee that he wouldn't harm her. Only when the blade was in one's own hands could it be sharpened. Otherwise, why would she cut the other party's blade? No matter how curious Luo Qingtong was, no matter how interested she was in the 10,000 poison body, she wouldn't cross this bottom line. Of course, Yi Qianxian was the only exception. Treating his meridians was a huge loss for her. Swish. Luo Qingtong's figure disappeared in front of Sima Zhu. Looking at the faintly discernible figure that disappeared like smoke, the youth standing under the tree clenched the bottle of corpse-dissolving liquid in his hand. Luo Qingtong. He muttered the other party's name in a low voice. That pair of eyes that were as still as the midnight sky suddenly burst forth with infinite hope and brilliance. The other party said that she could cure his cursed physique. So, he wasn't some devil, but had a special physique? 10,000 poison body, so, there was actually a possibility of him being cured? Sima Zhu's heart was beating fast. At this time, the youth still didn't know what this night meant to him. When the name of 10,000 poison sovereign followed in the footsteps of Luo Qingtong and spread to every place they went, causing countless people to be shocked, no one would have thought that the weak and gloomy youth would have such a day. Furthermore, no one knew that he had once stood on the edge of the abyss, just one step away from eternal damnation. It was Luo Qingtong who pulled him out and gave him a completely different new life, allowing him to stand above everyone. Whoosh! Luo Qingtong rushed back to the dormitory. Her roommate, Su Xiaoxiao, was still awake. She was fiddling with something. When Luo Qingtong passed by her room, she suddenly smelled the fragrance of medicine. Su Xiaoxiao was refining medicine. Luo Qingtong was slightly surprised. He didn't expect Su Xiaoxiao to be an alchemist. But isn't this kind of class very popular? How could the mentors of the pharmacy let her go? No matter what, he had to get her into the advanced class. For those with special talents, the lowest starting point would be the advanced class. If they were more talented, they would be in the elite class. After all, there were too few people who had the talent for medicine masters, spirit array masters, and weapon refiners. How could Su Xiaoxiao be assigned to the trash class? Luo Qingtong was surprised. She smelled the fragrant scent and instantly analyzed the medicinal properties of this bottle of liquid in her mind. What surprised her was that the medicinal properties of this liquid refined by Su Xiaoxiao were very stable. It was so stable that Luo Qingtong was surprised. There was almost no fluctuation, very stable. This stability meant that as long as the medicinal liquid was formed, no matter what kind of mistakes occurred, it wouldn't fail again. The effect of the medicinal liquid would also be very good. How could such a talented alchemist be assigned to the trash class? Chapter 473. Luo Qingtong. Seeing Luo Qingtong standing outside, Su Xiaoxiao, who was walking out with a disappointed expression, jumped in fright. She was a little uneasy as she dodged to the side. "That, you want to enter?" Before she could finish her sentence, she suddenly realized that this was her room, not Luo Qingtong's. She immediately blushed. Looking at the girl in front of her who was as nervous and helpless as a little white rabbit, Luo Qingtong couldn't help but laugh. "You're refining medicine?" She looked into her room. In the middle of the big desk, there were some auxiliary tools for refining medicine. Su Xiaoxiao nodded lightly, then said with a lonely face, "Unfortunately, I failed again." "Failed again?" Hearing this, Luo Qingtong looked at her in surprise. "Didn't you already succeed?" She could already smell the medicinal fragrance. "I failed." Su Xiaoxiao stood in front of Luo Qingtong, her head drooping. It looked as if there were invisible velvet ears hanging down from the top of her head. She said very dejectedly, "The quality was lowered again." As she said this, her eyes were filled with tears. Clearly, she had already worked very hard. She didn't know why, but she just kept failing, kept failing. Su Xiaoxiao also didn't know why. They were both pharmacists, and the instructor also praised her talent. However, every time she concocted a medicinal liquid, not only did she spend several times more time than other people, the grade of the same medicinal liquid she concocted was also several times lower than other people's. No matter how she tried, it was like this. If it weren't for this, she wouldn't have been assigned to the trash class. Thinking like this, Su Xiaoxiao's heart was very sad. Luo Qingtong looked at her and was even more surprised. "Take out your medicine for me to see." The stability of the medicine she just sensed was second only to her. Luo Qingtong didn't understand what Su Xiaoxiao meant by the low quality. But soon, she knew. She looked at the bottle of medicine Su Xiaoxiao took out and carefully sensed it. Yellow ranked second grade heart marrow liquid? This heart marrow liquid, shouldn't it be yellow ranked fourth grade? Could it be that she remembered wrongly? That's impossible. Luo Qingtong remembered the instructor talking about it in class today. She even took the opportunity to cram in some knowledge about this world's medicine that she didn't know before. Su Xiaoxiao's eyes started glistening with tears again. "I followed the instructor's instructions in the morning, and lowered the quality again. To be able to refine a fourth-grade medicinal liquid into a second-grade medicinal liquid, Su Xiaoxiao could be regarded as a prodigy that no one had ever done before. One had to know that the grade of the medicinal liquid was set at the very beginning, and it was impossible to change it. At most, the concentration of the medicinal properties of the medicinal liquid was different, and it was divided into 4 levels: low level, middle level, and high level. Su Xiaoxiao directly refined the other party 2 grades lower. This was really exploding. But Luo Qingtong frowned as she looked at the medicine in her hand. Although it had dropped from a 4th grade to a 2nd grade, Luo Qingtong sensed that there wasn't any change in the medicinal properties of the medicine. And it was obviously more stable than a normal 4th grade heart marrow liquid. In other words, other than the lower grade, this bottle of medicine was no different from a 4th grade heart marrow liquid. It was even better. But the medicinal properties were reduced by half. This was the first time Luo Qingtong saw such a strange situation. How did Su Xiaoxiao refine medicine? Chapter 474. That's how I refined it. I did it exactly as the instructor instructed. Su Xiaoxiao wiped the tears from her eyes and said, but I don't know why, but I just didn't do it right. Maybe I'm too stupid. She said with a desolate expression. She really did follow the instructor's instructions. Little Pig whispered to Luo Qingtong. But this girl is really too weird. She fiddled with this bottle of heart marrow solution for almost 2 hours. Do you know that? Most people only take an hour to refine this medicine. Su Xiaoxiao actually tripled the time required. Not only that, but the effect of the medicine was also reduced by 2 times. Don't you think this is a scam? She took a long time to refine and the effect of the medicine was low. No wonder she was assigned to the trash class. However, Su Xiaoxiao's talent in refining medicine was top-notch. The instructor only mentioned this medicine today, and he only casually demonstrated it, but she came back and refined it. Her talent was already top-notch among the alchemists. If she could raise her refining level in the future, she would definitely become an alchemist grandmaster. But, damn it, her refining ability was really bad. She was basically incurable. Little Pig didn't go out with Luo Qingtong tonight. He stayed in the dormitory and knew everything about Su Xiaoxiao's refining process. He had never seen an alchemist like Su Xiaoxiao, whose refining ability was so bad. It was as if the medicinal liquid in her hands had been cursed, making people speechless. Luo Qingtong looked at the medicine in her hands and then looked at the tears on Su Xiaoxiao's face. She suddenly asked, "Then are you going to give up?" "No." Su Xiaoxiao wiped the tears off her face. "I like refining medicine. Moreover, the instructors said that my talent in refining medicine is very good. I believe that as long as I persevere, I can do it. Anyway, it's just taking a little longer to refine than others, and the quality is lower than others. At worst, I'll work harder and raise my refining level. Even if I can't compare with other alchemists, I won't necessarily be worse than others," she said firmly. "Yes." Luo Qingtong looked at her, and her gaze softened. When she saw Su Xiaoxiao, she felt as if she was looking at her when she first activated her special ability. At that time, she didn't know how to use her eye technique and was hunted down by others. That was what she told herself. Even if her ocular sorcery could only be used as an auxiliary power and could not help her improve her strength at all, she would never give up and bow down to anyone. He would never become someone else's puppet. In the end, her ocular ability erupted and completely crushed the other ability users. She immediately launched a counterattack against the forces that had pursued her before. Luo Qingtong had always believed that as long as you refused to give up on yourself, no one in this world would be able to give up on you. Not even the heavens. I think you can think of it differently. She lowered her eyes and said to Su Xiaoxiao, "Your talent in alchemy is very good, and the medicinal properties of the medicinal liquid you refine are also very stable. Why must you adhere to the formula of the medicine taught by the instructors? If the methods in this world don't suit you, then create a path that suits you. In this world, the reason why geniuses are lonely and the reason why the strong are lonely. That's because the path they walk can't be replicated by others. Su Xiaoxiao, you can definitely walk your own path." Chapter 475. Luo Qingtong poured out the 2nd grade yellow grade heart marrow fluid. Seeing her actions, Su Xiaoxiao couldn't help but cry out. In the next second, she suddenly covered her mouth. Because in her line of sight, the medicinal fluid that flowed out of the jade bottle was caught by Luo Qingtong. The young girl's hands seemed to have magic. She held the ball of medicinal fluid and kneaded it, making it stay in her palms. Her movements were like moving clouds and flowing water. It was so beautiful that it looked like she was playing. However, Su Xiaoxiao knew that to be able to lift something so heavy with such ease, one needed to have a shocking alchemy ability. The refinement, extraction, and even condensation of medicinal materials required the cooperation of specialized tools. It wasn't impossible to be like Luo Qingtong and control the medicinal fluid with just the strength in her palms. However, one needed extremely precise control over the medicinal properties and flow of the medicinal fluid. Otherwise, if one used too much strength, it would be easy to crush the medicinal fluid. If one used too little strength, they wouldn't be able to control the medicinal fluid and could only let it flow to the ground. Luo Qingtong's actions were already comparable to that of a heavenly alchemist. Only when one understood the various steps and medicinal properties of refining medicine by heart, and at the same time, had superb alchemy ability, could they control these medicinal fluids. But now, in front of Su Xiaoxiao, Luo Qingtong just casually squeezed and held the medicinal fluid. That was fine. Su Xiaoxiao then watched as Luo Qingtong took out a few stalks of medicinal materials. Su Xiaoxiao couldn't recognize those medicinal materials, but she could feel that the medicinal properties on them were very rich. It was very obvious that these medicinal materials weren't ordinary goods. The quality of the medicinal fluid you refined is low, so you can make up for it from other places. Luo Qingtong looked at her and said indifferently. What she said to Su Xiaoxiao was something that ordinary alchemists wouldn't think of and definitely wouldn't do. The heart marrow liquid is a grade 2 medicinal liquid. What if I add in a higher grade medicinal liquid that won't affect the compatibility of the medicinal properties? As she spoke, she held the ball of heart marrow liquid in her right hand and a stalk of medicinal herb in her left. She kneaded and squeezed it, and the stalk of medicinal herb turned into a ball of sparkling green medicinal energy. Luo Qingtong suddenly clasped her hands together. Ah! No way. If so, it will. Su Xiaoxiao's words were only half-spoken, and she stopped instantly. She opened her mouth wide in disbelief as she stared at the medicinal liquid in front of her. It hadn't been scrapped, nor had there been any changes to its medicinal properties. After this ball of medicinal liquid merged with the ball of medicinal energy, its quality had increased. Su Xiaoxiao covered her mouth as she stared at the grade 4 heart marrow fluid in front of her. Large droplets of tears fell from her eyes. Level 4 heart marrow fluid. She stared at the heart marrow fluid in Luo Qingtong's hand in disbelief. Advanced 4th rank. How was this possible? Luo Qingtong had casually added in a stalk of medicinal herb, and it actually increased the quality of the heart marrow fluid? So, it could be done in this way? If this was the case, then wouldn't she no longer have to bear the title of a useless alchemist in the future? Su Xiaoxiao's heart was filled with excitement at this moment. She stared at the medicinal liquid in Luo Qingtong's hand in shock and almost couldn't believe her eyes. What Luo Qingtong had done had completely overturned all the theories she had about alchemy in her mind. The formula of a medicinal liquid definitely couldn't be changed casually. Once the medicinal liquid had been refined, other medicinal herbs and liquids could not be added. Chapter 476. Medicinal power and medicinal power can fuse together before, can reinforce each other, can restrain each other. Why can't there be no reaction? Luo Qingtong's voice resounded in her ears. Xiao, what you need to do is to find high-level medicinal materials that won't have any reaction with the medicinal materials in the medicinal liquid you want to refine. Add them to the medicinal liquid you want to refine and improve its quality. If you want to succeed, if you want to improve yourself, don't take the ordinary path. Because you have to always believe that we aren't ordinary people. We are destined to stand at the peak. When Luo Qingtong used her eye technique to see through everything to kill people for the first time, she also told herself this. In this world, there was nothing that couldn't be changed. It's just that we didn't think of it and didn't want to change it. Who said that trash had to accept their fate? Without a strong attack power, even if I relied on my auxiliary ability, I could still play you to death. The only thing that could stop us from moving forward and standing at the peak was never an external obstacle, but ourselves. Qingtong. Thank you. Thank you. Su Xiaoxiao was so happy that she wept. Luo Qingtong's words opened the door to another world for her. She didn't want to give up and finally saw hope. I will definitely become the most powerful alchemist. Qing Tong, I want to become your personal alchemist. She said excitedly, hugging Luo Qingtong's hand so tightly that it was about to jump up. But soon, she remembered that Luo Qingtong's alchemy skills were much better than hers. She didn't need a personal alchemist like her at all. All of a sudden, the invisible velvet ears on Su Xiaoxiao's head were about to droop down. She was indescribably disappointed in her heart. Besides alchemy, what else could she help Luo Qingtong with? Su Xiaoxiao desperately stirred her fingers. She was so anxious that she was about to cry. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice rang out with a chuckle. Personal alchemist? Then forget it. Xiaoxiao, your ability is not limited to this. Become a combat alchemist. Stand by my side. The stability of your medicinal liquid allows you to stand in front of the stage and not stand behind countless people, silently refining medicinal liquid. Luo Qingtong had come into contact with those pharmaceutical maniacs in the 24th century. Which one of them didn't use pharmaceuticals to set off a frenzy? Medicine could save people, but it could also kill people. Ordinary alchemists might not be able to stand in front of the stage and become a fighting force. But Su Xiaoxiao was different. The stability of her potions meant that as long as she had enough potions, she could combine them into different potions with different effects, giving her opponents a nightmarish feeling. Most importantly, the effects of the medicinal liquid produced by such a combination were completely random, making it impossible to guard against. This was the biggest difference between Su Xiaoxiao and other alchemists. She had too many uncertainties. And this uncertainty was the guarantee of her victory. The poisons prepared by other alchemists all had corresponding antidotes. But Su Xiaoxiao didn't. Combat pharmacist? Su Xiaoxiao stared blankly at the young girl in front of her. She listened to her overturn her world one after another. Before today, she had never thought that alchemists could also fight. For most martial artists, it was already good enough that alchemists could use poison to protect themselves. Could she still fight? Inexplicably, Su Xiaoxiao's heart suddenly had a feeling of eagerness to try. She didn't know why, but she had a strong confidence. If the young girl in front of her said so, then she could definitely do it. She could do it. Chapter 477. Back in the room, Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong. Why did you think of giving her advice today? Luo Qingtong had never been a person who liked to meddle in other people's business. Probably because you don't want to see her efforts go to waste. Luo Qingtong put him on the bed and went to wash herself. A person who was able to work so hard to get rid of her fate after being assigned to the lower class was worthy of her advice. What's more, she liked Su Xiaoxiao's temperament of not accepting her fate even when she was as low as dust. He couldn't tell that she was as soft as a little white rabbit, but she had such tenacity in her bones. Yi Qianxian nodded. Her innate talent is good. If your advice is effective, she may be able to walk her own path that is completely different from other pharmacists. At that time, she can be of help to you. As he spoke, he raised his head to look at the young girl who walked to his side and sat down. The latter had just finished washing herself, and there were still some water droplets on her beautiful face. Her long black hair was scattered behind her, and the strands on her forehead were a little wet, sticking to her face. It made her look like a spirit that had just come out of the water. Yi Qianxian couldn't take his eyes off her. Everything about Luo Qingtong amazed him. Her advice to Su Xiaoxiao was something that Yi Qianxian never expected. The young girl's ideas were very bold, and very different from the rest. Every time, she was able to give him an enormous surprise. Yi Qianxian thought that it was normal for him to like this woman. In this world, there had never been anyone like Luo Qingtong who could give him all kinds of surprises and unfathomable feelings. She tempted him time and time again to go deeper and understand her more. In this way, he fell step by step. The young girl was intelligent and quick-witted, cunning and resourceful, ruthless and bold. When she was cunning, she was like a fox. When she was ruthless, she was like a fierce wolf. When she was docile, she was like a delicate cat. When she was evil, she was like a bewitching snake demon. Yi Qianxian never thought that he would fall in love with such a seductress the moment he fell in love with her after more than 20 years of not falling in love. Moreover, she was very disobedient. But what could he do? He liked this woman. He liked her so much that he tolerated her disrespect towards him. He liked her so much that he let her break free from his control time and time again. He liked her so much that he would rather let her imprison this wisp of his soul. What happened? Seeing him staring at her without blinking, Luo Qingtong found it funny and sat beside him. She asked, "Is it because I'm too beautiful that you are stunned?" Luo Qingtong just wanted to tease him. However, yeah, little Nether Venerable glanced at her and answered in a low voice, "I'm stunned." Luo Qingtong's face was inexplicably hot. This man learned quickly. He even knew how to flirt with her now. Fortunately, this was only a wisp of his soul. Otherwise, what could he do? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and pinched his pink little face. "Since you think I'm beautiful, then quickly serve me." As she spoke, she hugged the little fellow and rolled onto the bed. "Go to sleep." As she spoke, she kissed his face. In the darkness, Yi Qianxian's pair of cute phoenix eyes, which had become smaller, stared at her. After a long time, he slowly closed his eyes. "Serve me, right?" This was what this woman had said herself. He remembered it. At this time, Luo Qingtong still didn't know how much of a trap she was in. Chapter 478. 3 days later, the competition for the first prize of the new students began. Dang dang dang. The crisp sound of the bell spread to every corner of the Tianyu Branch Academy. The competition for the first prize of the new students had always been a grand event in the Tianyu Branch Academy. In this grand event, the 10 weapons given out by the academy would be fought over by the top students of many countries. The person who won the weapons would stand out from the group of first prize winners. Near the end of the year, the top 10 students of the genius ranking would be recruited into the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. This competition for the first prize of the new students was also called the competition for the genius ranking. Those who were able to stand out from the crowd and win the first prize would become the new top 10 rankers of the genius ranking when the top 10 rankers of the genius ranking entered the main academy of the Great Qin Sacred Academy at the end of the year, continuing their glory and glory in the academy. Therefore, even those who weren't the first prize of the new students would come to watch this competition. They wanted to see who would get the top 10 of the genius ranking in the future. And the older students of the genius ranking would also come to watch. Dang dang dang. The crisp sound of the bell kept ringing. Luo Qingtong, Su Xiaoxiao, Sima Zhu, and little tyrant Yuan went to the square together. As for how they got together, it all started with Yuan little overlord's pestering. On the second day after Sima Zhu came, little tyrant Yuan came and wanted to recognize Luo Qingtong as his boss. He even said that if Sima Zhu could come, why couldn't he? Luo Qingtong said angrily that Sima Zhu sold himself to her. What about him? In the end, little tyrant Yuan sold himself without saying anything. Luo Qingtong was really speechless. But for little tyrant Yuan, he was a martial arts trash. Wasn't it the same no matter who he sold himself to? Anyway, it wasn't his turn to inherit the Yuan family. Moreover, he was hated by so many people in the capital of Tianyu. Maybe in the future, when a disciple of the same generation who was bullied by him broke through, his good days would come to an end. In that case, selling himself to Luo Qingtong would at least let him know how she broke through his defense before he was unlucky. It wasn't a loss at all. Little Overlord Yuan had completely given up on himself. However, what he didn't know was that this fall of his had given him a bright future. In short, little brat Yuan Luo Qingtong shamelessly made her speechless. When the group of people arrived at the square was already filled with people. There was a clear distinction between them. The ones closest to the center of the plaza were naturally the students of the elite class, followed by the advanced class, then the intermediate class, and finally the lower class. Luo Qingtong and the others were almost lined up to the edge of the square. They were completely ignored, and no one even knew if they were coming or not. Luo Qingtong didn't care about this. She raised her head to look at the huge silver tablet in front of her. She immediately saw Yuan Ma's name at the very top. What's that? Luo Qingtong asked little tyrant Yuan. Among them, only little overlord Yuan knew this the best. Sima Zhu was a sensitive youth with low self-esteem, and Su Xiaoxiao was a shy little bunny. Only little overlord Yuan was a little jumpy. Moreover, as a tyrant of the capital, he knew a lot of things. Chapter 479. He explained to Luo Qingtong, the so-called Academy historical tablet is a record of all kinds of important events in the Academy. Especially those that brought glory to the Academy. Then he saw Yuan Ma's name and said, for example, the fifth prince was admitted into the Academy of the Empire of Qin and became a new student of the Sky grade. Of course the Academy would write about it. Alas, he is a real winner in life. As he spoke, he was suddenly stabbed by Sima Zhu. Hey! What are you? Before he could ask the question, he suddenly remembered something. F*CKU. The fifth prince. Isn't that boss's fiancé? And the kind that despises her. To be honest, even little overlord Yuan looked down on Yuan Mo and the Yuan imperial family's way of doing things. Originally, if you despise someone else, you can break off the engagement. If Yuan Ma thought he was a genius and that Luo Qingtong wasn't good enough for him, he could just break off the engagement. But they didn't. Not only did they not break off the engagement, they also looked down on the Luo clan and Luo Qingtong. After all, it wasn't that the Luo clan and Luo Qingtong had to suck up to them. It was said that the Luo clan had broken off the engagement once before. But the Tianyu royal family didn't allow it. Furthermore, according to some of the secrets of the royal family that little tyrant Yuan had heard before, it was said that Luo Qingtong's mother was the reason why Yuan Ma could have his current achievements and the Tianyu Empire's current status, becoming a powerful empire among the many empires. It was said that it was Luo Qingtong's mother who cured Yuan Ma's innate cold disease that made him a genius. Since entering the Academy of the Empire of Qin, he wasn't much weaker than the geniuses of the other holy dynasties. This kind of kindness, not to mention Yuan Ma's status as the wife, even the Tianyu royal family should treat the Luo clan and Luo Qingtong well. And the result? Little overlord Yuan curled his lips. It was said that the old man of the Luo family came to break off the engagement, but was humiliated by the royal family and chased away. Not only that, the imperial family even sent someone to the eastern border country to teach the Luo family a lesson, asking the aristocratic families and the imperial family there to cause trouble for the Luo family. Which part of these things looked like they were done because of someone's kindness? Even someone as arrogant and despotic as him looked down on Tianyu's royal family's actions. What was the saying again? She wanted to be a whore, but she also wanted to establish a chastity. Tianyu's royal family, on the other hand, didn't want to be labeled as ungrateful, but they couldn't even erect a memorial arch. Just as little tyrant Yuan was complaining in his heart and was about to apologize to Luo Qingtong and change the topic of Yuan Ma, an extremely arrogant voice suddenly came from the front. That's right. My royal brother is such an outstanding person. While speaking, a young girl wearing an emerald green palace dress, surrounded by a group of people, walked towards Luo Qingtong. It was 7th Princess Yuan Shui. The latter was slapped and kicked by Luo Qingtong in Yan Yuju's carriage. It wasn't until today that the swelling on her face disappeared and she came to school. If it wasn't for that, she definitely wouldn't have been able to escape the zombie pill incident. Luo Qingtong felt that she was lucky. At this time, Yuan Shui raised her head and looked at her with an arrogant expression. Luo Qingtong, I heard that when I wasn't here, you were directly assigned to the trash class. You really lost face for my brother and the imperial family. Chapter 480. As soon as she said that, everyone in the lower class glared at her. So what if they were in the trash class? They weren't talented enough, but people like Yuan Shui might not be any better than them. Other than some second-generation heirs who were thrown into the trash class because they had no talent, Most of the people in the lower class were sent here because their family background wasn't good enough and their talent was average. If they were descendants of aristocratic families, they could still enter the intermediate class or the advanced class with their talent and the nourishment of elixirs all year round. Most of the descendants of aristocratic families entered the advanced class like this. What right did Yuanxue have to say that about them? Little tyrant Yuan was also angry. Because he was now the trash class person who was too ashamed to come to school, that Yuanxue was talking about. F*ck your grandpa, even if your uncle can tolerate it, your aunt can't. Yuanxue, what the F*ck are you saying? He glared at Yuanxue. Little tyrant Yuan was a reckless person who didn't care about anything. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become a tyrant in the imperial city as a martial arts trash. Although he was destined to not have much future, his divine power and petrification soul imprint would still give him a place in the Yuan family. When he entered the Yuan family army in the future, he wouldn't necessarily be worse than others. Therefore, Great General Yuan was still indulgent towards him. As for the other aristocratic families, they couldn't say anything when their descendants were beaten up. Who asked little tyrant Yuan to be a trash? If your descendants couldn't even beat a trash, how could you have the nerve to settle the score with the Yuan family? Therefore, little tyrant Yuan was arrogant all the way here. Even if he met Yuanxue, he wasn't prepared to give her any face. Anyway, he was a trash who didn't inherit the family business and didn't need to curry favor with the Yuan royal family. Why should he lower his head to Yuanxue? I was wondering why she still had the nerve to come to school. What's wrong? Yuanxue didn't show any weakness. It wasn't that she hadn't heard of Yuanhu's reputation, but so what? He was just a trash who relied on his brute force to show off his power. She was a princess, how could she be afraid of him? Did he really think that his brute force was invincible? She didn't bring the guards by her side, otherwise, any one of them would be enough to beat him to the point where even dogs wouldn't recognize him. Yuanxue didn't believe that Yuanhu would dare to attack her. Humph. Luo Qingtong, look at what kind of people you're hanging out with. Yuanxue's gaze was contemptuous and contemptuous. A bunch of useless trash. You didn't want the recommendation that the royal family gave you, you even faked your first place, and you were sent to the trash class. Are you trying to embarrass the royal family on purpose? To have a fiancé like you, my imperial brother is really lucky. Ah. Before she could finish her words, a slap landed on her face instantly. That slap landed right on the half of Yuanxue's face that had just healed, instantly slapping her face to one side. Blood flowed from the corner of Yuanxue's mouth. Princess. Seeing Yuanxue being slapped to the side, the people around her immediately surrounded her. Luo Qingtong, how dare you hit Princess Qi? Yuanxue also held her swollen cheek and roared at Luo Qingtong, Luo Qingtong. *tch, how dare you hit me? The same slap overlapped with the one that Yuanxue had suffered in Yan Yuju's carriage, causing her anger and humiliation to soar. What right did Luo Qingtong have to hit her? She only deserved to be humiliated and trampled on. What right did she have to hit her? Chapter 481. Slap. Another crisp sound rang out. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold. She raised her hand and slapped Yuanxue again. She slapped Yuanxue's face, which was tilted to one side, to the other. Now, both sides of her face were swollen like steamed buns. Luo Qingtong. Yuanxue screamed. She glared at Luo Qingtong as if she wanted to eat her alive. Under her gaze, Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She took Little Pig's handkerchief, wiped her face, and threw it on the ground. Why wouldn't I dare to hit you? She sneered at Yuanxue. Yuanxue, who do you think you are? They say the eldest brother is like the father, and the eldest sister-in-law is like the mother. I'm your royal brother's fiancé. You spoke rudely to me, so I have the right to teach you a lesson. Moreover, not only did you insult me, you also insulted your royal brother and Tianyu's royal family. Shouldn't I hit you? 2 slaps are too light. Luo Qingtong looked at Yuan Xue with disdain. She looked at Yuan Xue as if she was looking at a pile of trash. Everyone's eyes were already filled with shock. They would never have thought that the scene of the seventh princess bullying the unfavored fiancé of her imperial brother would turn into her being taught a lesson. Oh my God. This Luo Qingtong was too arrogant. No matter what, the seventh princess was still the fifth prince's younger sister. Luo Qingtong wasn't favored by Tianyu's royal family and Yuanma. She dared to hit the seventh princess? Wasn't she afraid of incurring the disdain of Tianyu's royal family and the fifth prince? In fact, Luo Qingtong wasn't afraid at all. She wanted Tianyu's royal family and Yuanma to hate her even more. She wanted to cancel the engagement as soon as possible. Save her the trouble. But seeing how Tianyu's royal family was willing to throw away their face and refuse to cancel the engagement, she knew she wouldn't get what she wanted so easily. Since that was the case, why should she give them face? Tianyu's royal family didn't care about their own face. Then she could stomp on them as much as she wanted. It was laughable that Yuan Xue was still showing off in front of her. Did she really think that she wanted the position of her imperial brother's fiancé? Since she took the initiative to ask for a slap in the face, then he would fulfill her wish. Luo Qingtong, stop talking nonsense. Yuan Xue gritted her teeth and looked at her. When did I insult my imperial brother and the imperial family? I clearly only scolded you. You haven't married my brother yet. How can he be considered a member of the royal family? Yuan Xue still had some brains. She could scold Luo Qingtong, but scolding Yuanma and the entire royal family? She wasn't stupid. If Luo Qingtong really taught her a lesson, she really couldn't fight back and could only accept it. But she had only scolded her. What right did Luo Qingtong have to teach her a lesson under the banner of the royal family? Ha! Luo Qingtong sneered. You called me a slut, a piece of trash. What do you think Yuanma and the Tianyu royal family are? A slut's nest and a pile of trash. Yuan Xue, you're brainless. I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your imperial brother and Tianyu's royal family. So that you won't embarrass Tianyu's royal family and your imperial brother when you go out in the future. Luo Qingtong's words were like a slap to Yuan Xue's face. She lifted her foot and suddenly kicked Yuan Xue's knee. Ah! With a scream, Yuan Xue fell to her knees with a bang. The sound of those two knees hitting the ground was really painful to listen to. Yuan Xue's tears immediately burst out. Chapter 482. She roared angrily. When the elite class students heard this, they all came to their senses and rushed forward. Luo Qingtong, stop. The seventh princess isn't someone you can teach a lesson to. You're just the legitimate daughter of a small country's marquis, how dare you? However, when they rushed forward, Luo Qingtong suddenly lifted her foot and heavily pressed it on Yuan Xue's body. Yuan Xue was just about to get up, but with a bang, she knelt down again. All of you shut up. Luo Qingtong looked at them coldly. This is between me and Yuan Xue, and also between Tianyu's royal family. I'd like to see which family is so bold and ambitious that they even dare to interfere with the royal family's affairs. As she spoke, she ordered little tyrant Yuan and the others, you guys stop them. If anyone dares to make a move, don't be polite with them. Hit first and remember later. Give me the list of names. I'd like to see who dares to make a move. They want to replace Tianyu's royal family. Luo Qingtong's words were naturally directed at Sima Zhu and Yuan Hu. The two of them, one had the 10,000 poisons body, the other had innate divine strength. If they went all out, it would be enough to make these elite class students suffer. After beating them up, she would remember the families of those who made a move. She didn't believe that Tianyu's royal family wouldn't be suspicious of them. All right. Boss, leave it to me. Yuan Hu patted his chest and agreed. Don't worry, if they can break through my defenses, I'll twist my head off for you to kick. As he spoke, he glanced at Yuan Xue who was kneeling on the ground and grinned, Seventh princess, enjoy. N. Little tyrant Yuan was also a very vengeful person. He had suffered at the hands of Yu Wenxue before. Now, he couldn't wait to see her suffer. Sima Zhu didn't say anything, but silently stood behind Yuan Hu and untied the bandages on his hands. Su Xiaoxiao approached Luo Qingtong with red eyes. Her hands trembled as she nervously held the 2 bottles of medicinal liquid that she had refined. When these 2 bottles of medicinal liquid were mixed together, it would form a kind of medicinal liquid that was similar to a rigid medicinal liquid. According to Luo Qingtong's words, Su Xiaoxiao figured it out by herself. She wanted to be the combat pharmacist who stood by Luo Qingtong's side. She could do it. Su Xiaoxiao kept cheering herself up. She stood up timidly but firmly. Some of the students from the lower classes also stood up. In any case, they didn't have any talent and weren't afraid of Yu Wenxue and the royal family suppression. Now that they had a chance to vent their anger, they naturally wouldn't just stand by and watch. Count me in. Count me in too. F***CK. If the tiger doesn't show its might, they will treat us like a sick cat. What's wrong with being in a trash class? The trash class also has its own dignity. Whoever dares to make a move will be beaten back. The group of people formed a circle and surrounded the elite class students who came with Yu Wenxue. They all looked at them with unkind expressions. You. This was the first time the elite class students had been forced to such a state. Especially when these people were from the lower classes that they had always looked down on. But if they really made a move, they didn't dare. Didn't you hear what Luo Qingtong said? This was a family matter of Tianyu's royal family. If they made a move, they would replace Tianyu's royal family. Who knew if they would really attract the suspicion of the Emperor of Tianyu after they made a move? After all, the 7th princess was the 7th princess and the Emperor of Tianyu was the Emperor of Tianyu. Among them, which family was truly clean? Thinking of this, they didn't dare to make a move. 7th princess, the group of people looked at Yu Wenxue with a guilty conscience, making the latter so angry that blood rushed to her head. Chapter 483. What's going on here? An indifferent and elegant voice sounded. Shi Qingqing's graceful figure suddenly walked out from the crowd. Her face was covered by a veil, and one could vaguely see the outline of her beautiful face. It was obvious that her face was almost healed. However, as a top 10 student on the genius ranking, Shi Qingqing was bound to be highly valued by the academy. In addition, the academy didn't lack alchemists. If she was treated in time, there was a chance that her face could be saved. However, because Shi Qingqing's change of expression at that time was really too shocking. Therefore, even if her face was almost healed, everyone couldn't help but take a step back when they saw her coming over, subconsciously avoiding her. When she saw this scene, the smile on Shi Qingqing's face unnoticeably stiffened. Her graceful steps forward also came to an abrupt halt. It was truly infuriating. Shi Qingqing had never been treated like this by anyone before. Ever since she left the house today, everyone she met along the way had a fearful attitude towards her. It was as if she would turn into a terrifying man-eating monster and pounce on them in the next second. Thinking of this, Shi Qingqing suddenly clenched her teeth. She didn't know what was wrong with her. That day at the class registration, she suddenly became like that. The dean of the Alchemy Institute came to investigate, but he couldn't find the reason. He could only attribute it to some hidden poison in her body that was suddenly drawn out that day. Shi Qingqing herself also had a baffled look on her face. Fortunately, after the treatment, those scary lumps slowly disappeared. However, Shi Qingqing's own cultivation was also greatly affected. She almost fell out of the top 10 of the genius ranking. This caused her to be indescribably frightened. During this period of time, she hadn't taken a single step out of her room. She was fully focused on stabilizing her strength. Otherwise, if she fell out of the top 10 of the genius ranking, it would really be a big joke. She forced herself to maintain the smile on her face and looked at Luo Qingtong and Yu Wenxue, who was kneeling on the ground, and said, "My 2 junior sisters, what's wrong with you? What's the matter? Is there a conflict? You're going to be a family in the future. If there's a problem, you should discuss it properly. Although she was looking at Luo Qingtong and Yuan Xue when she asked this. But in reality, those words were all directed at Luo Qingtong. Didn't you say this is between you and Tianyu's royal family? Since it was a family matter, there was no need to talk about it while kneeling. They should talk about it properly. Shi Qingqing was indeed a master of hypocrisy. With one sentence, she put aside Luo Qingtong's lesson and set this matter as a family matter that needed to be discussed properly. As she spoke, she reached out to pull Yuan Xue. She originally thought that Luo Qingtong would give her face, but she didn't expect the girl to stand there motionless, one foot pressing down on Yuan Xue's shoulder. Blood mist floated in those clear eyes as he looked at her with an indifferent expression. Senior Shi has just arrived, and she doesn't even know what's going on. Don't you think it's a little ridiculous for her to ask us to have a good talk? Yuan Xue insulted the royal family. I will teach her a lesson on behalf of her royal brother and the royal family. Senior sister, please don't interfere. After all, this was a humiliation to the royal family, so they had to be strictly disciplined. Don't you agree, senior sister? Luo Qingtong looked at Shi Qingqing as she said this. Is that so? Shi Qingqing's hand was stretched out halfway, but she slowly withdrew it. She tucked that hand into her sleeve and looked up at Luo Qingtong, saying, Junior sister is really considered of the royal family. She was jealous because Luo Qingtong could openly use her status as the fifth prince's fiancé to teach Yuan Xue a lesson. Chapter 484. But this is the Tianyu branch. Junior sister Luo, the competition for first place is about to begin. It doesn't seem right for you to cause a ruckus with seventh princess, right? Besides. She smiled at Luo Qingtong and said, Junior sister Luo, you're teaching seventh princess a lesson. I know you're doing this for the good of seventh princess and the royal family. Those who don't know might think you're deliberately slapping seventh princess and the royal family in the face. Junior sister, what do you think? So if she continued, she wouldn't be teaching Yuan Xue a lesson, but deliberately slapping Tianyu's royal family in the face? This Shi Qingqing was quite good at grasping the main point. Luo Qingtong used Tianyu's royal family to pressure Yuan Xue, so Shi Qingqing used Tianyu's royal family to pressure her. Interesting. Shi Qingqing was the one asking for it. Luo Qingtong looked at Shi Qingqing's proud face hidden under the veil and laughed. Oh. Senior sister Shi, you're saying I'm wrong? Luo Qingtong said with a smile, they say the deeper the love, the more the blame. Senior sister Shi, don't you know this? The stricter and more ruthless I discipline Yuan Xue, it's all for her own good. Senior sister Shi, on the other hand, keeps saying I have ulterior motives. I don't know what you're thinking. As for slapping the royal family in the face. Luo Qingtong smiled at Shi Qingqing, you questioned my qualifications for first place and sent me to the lower class. Senior sister, aren't you credited for that? You're slapping the royal family in the face, and at the same time you're advising me not to slap the royal family in the face. You've really played both the good and the bad. I'd like to ask, what are you thinking? Or could it be that from the beginning to the end, you only wanted to slap my face? Shi Qingqing was caught off guard by Luo Qingtong's words. She'd played the role of a gentle goddess for so long. Because of her strength and beauty, many people had fallen for her act. She could bemoan the state of the universe and pity the fate of mankind while pouring dirty water all over the other party. However, Luo Qingtong's response was completely out of her expectations. The other party's scheming and eloquence wasn't below hers at all. She wasn't able to suppress Luo Qingtong with her words, but she was suppressed instead. This was the first time Shi Qingqing was in such a sorry state. She looked at the subtle gazes of the people around her and tried to explain awkwardly, Junior Luo, you misunderstood. Before she finished speaking, Luo Qingtong had already replied with an oh. Then, she looked at her and said, so, senior sister doesn't think that I did anything wrong and just came over to persuade me? Shi Qingqing was dumbfounded when she heard what she had to say, how was she to answer to this, to say she to Luo o to's to Luo Qingtong? But if she said no, wouldn't that prove her hypocrisy and double-dealing? She'd be slapping Tianyu's royal family in the face and persuading Luo Qingtong not to slap Tianyu's royal family in the face. Either way, it wasn't good for Shi Qingqing. Before she could think of an answer, Luo Qingtong's voice sounded leisurely from the other side. Did you hear that? Seventh princess, even senior sister sure thinks I was right to teach you a lesson. So, you'd better kneel and apologize to me. Chapter 485. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she suddenly exerted force on Yuan Xue's leg. With a bang, Yuan Xue was forced to bend over and kowtow heavily to the ground. The force was so great that her forehead broke. Luo Qingtong. Yuan Xue's body trembled with anger. She still wanted to say something. In the next second, Luo Qingtong hooked her neck and suddenly raised her head. Bang! Yuan Xue was forced to kowtow again. Ah! Yuan Xue was about to collapse. In front of so many people, she was forced to kowtow to Luo Qingtong again and again. And from the looks of it, Luo Qingtong meant that if she didn't apologize, she would continue kowtowing. Seeing that Luo Qingtong was still trying to suppress her, Yuan Xue couldn't take it anymore. I apologize. I apologize, okay? Yuan Xue bit her lip until it almost bled. She endured the humiliation and said word by word, "It's my fault. I shouldn't have insulted you and caused royal brother and the imperial family to be humiliated. It's my fault. Is this okay?" Yuan Xue's heart was bleeding. When had she ever lowered her head like this? In the past, it was always Luo Qingtong who was beaten and scolded in front of her. She never dared to talk back. But now, she was forcing her to kowtow and apologize. This slut, don't be complacent. I won't let this go. Yuan Xue's heart was filled with hatred. Very good. In front of everyone's shocked gazes, Luo Qingtong withdrew her leg from Yuan Xue's body. Yuan Xue, remember today. If you dare disrespect me again, I won't mind teaching you a lesson. Luo Qingtong didn't care about how Tianyu's imperial family felt about her. She only knew that since they weren't willing to break off the engagement, they couldn't blame her for using their power and reputation to suppress them. What was that saying again? That's right, since it was her own fault, she had to bear it herself. Tianyu's imperial family was shameless, so she didn't need to give them any face. The next time Yuan Xue came, she promised to continue trampling on her. If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't want to fall out with Tianyu's imperial family, Luo Qingtong would have killed her. Luo Qingtong sneered and left. The crowd was still in a daze. They thought that it would be a good show where the seventh princess bullied Luo Qingtong, but unexpectedly, it was the exact opposite of what they had imagined. The one who was humiliated was actually the seventh princess. Luo Qingtong was so arrogant, but the seventh princess could not do anything to her. Didn't they say that the royal family of Tianyu despised Luo Qingtong and didn't want her to be a royal daughter-in-law? Why did it seem like it was the other way around? Luo Qingtong was so rude to the seventh princess. It was obvious that she hated this marriage. In the face of her arrogance, the seventh princess could only admit her mistake and lower her head. Were the rumors before the rumors? In fact, the Luo clan didn't want the marriage with the Tianyu royal family. They even came to cancel the marriage, but the royal family didn't agree. Thinking about it, the crowd felt their view of the world had been overturned. Shi Qingqing's heart was filled with jealousy. Being the fifth prince's fiancé was such an arrogant thing. Luo Qingtong dared to be so arrogant because the fifth prince had a high status in the royal family of Tianyu and was loyal to her and refused to break off the engagement. This woman was ruining her status as the fifth prince's fiancé. If it was her, she wouldn't do this and tarnish the fifth prince's reputation. Chapter 486. By the way, Senior Shi, I didn't do as you wished. She smiled. No matter how much Yuan Xue needs to be taught a lesson, she's still a member of Tianyu's imperial family. Although I don't know why you don't like her, don't try to provoke me into attacking her again. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll be provoked and cripple her. It'll be hard to explain to Tianyu's imperial family and Yuan Ma. Don't you think so? Shi Qingqing was stunned by Luo Qingtong's words. What did Luo Qingtong mean? She was saying that the reason why she was so heavy-handed was because of her provocation? Shi Qingqing's eyes widened. She didn't expect Luo Qingtong to do something like that. Luo Qingtong was too ruthless. She was clearly trying to save Princess Qi, so she purposely said those words to stop her. But in Luo Qingtong's eyes, it became a provocation for her to attack the seventh princess. Wait! Junior Luo, you. Shi Qingqing hastily tried to explain. But as soon as she spoke, Yu Wenxue, who was kneeling on the ground and filled with anger from Luo Qingtong's humiliation, suddenly jumped up from the ground and pounced on her. Shi Qingqing. Yu Wenshue's voice was sharp. How dare you trick me? Shi Qingqing was used to being a hypocrite, always showing 30% of her true self and 70% of her true self. Yu Wenxue was used to being arrogant and didn't understand the meaning behind her words. After hearing Luo Qingtong's words, coupled with the fact that Shi Qingqing had indeed sent Luo Qingtong to the lower class, slapping Tianyu's imperial family in the face, Yu Wenshue's mind went astray. She thought about how Shi Qingqing liked her imperial brother and would always try to curry favor with her. But she didn't like her at all and didn't give Shi Qingqing any face. After all, she was only the daughter of the right minister. So what if she was a bit of a genius? So what if she was in the top 10 of the genius rankings? Could she compare to the heavenly beauties of the empire of Qin's holy academy? Could he be compared to the one who showed goodwill to her imperial brother? If her imperial brother married Luo Qingtong, he would have a good reputation as someone who valued friendship and righteousness. What was the benefit of marrying Shi Qingqing? She didn't even take a look at her own status. She actually dared to covet her imperial brother. Thus, Yu Wenxue had always been disdainful towards Shi Qingqing. She didn't expect that the other party would step on her when she was at her most embarrassing. This hypocritical and ruthless woman. He didn't expect her to be so vicious. She actually dared to plot against him. Yu Wenxue was furious. She glared at Shi Qingqing as if she wanted to eat her up. Because Luo Qingtong was someone Yuan Mo said he had to marry, she couldn't use the power of Tianyu's royal family to deal with her. But who was Shi Qingqing? They actually dared to deal with her when she was in trouble. B*TCH. Yu Wenxue rushed up and attacked Shi Qingqing. The latter didn't even dare to fight back. Luo Qingtong dared to hit Yu Wenxue because she was the fiancée of the fifth prince and because Yu Wenxue insulted her first. But what right did Shi Qingqing have to hit the seventh princess? Was she challenging the royal family's dignity? Thus, Shi Qingqing could only retreat while blocking. Seventh princess, let me explain. I didn't mean it that way. Luo Qingtong, she was about to say that Luo Qingtong was slandering her. On the other side, Luo Qingtong's faint voice sounded. Oh. So when I asked Senior Shi if you were here to persuade me, you didn't say anything. Was it my imagination? The moment Luo Qingtong said this, Yu Wenshue's anger burned even more. That's right. If Shi Qingqing wanted to help her, why didn't she say anything? Chapter 487. Thinking of this, her actions became even more vicious. She even called for the other elite class students to attack Shi Qingqing. These people didn't dare to make a move against Luo Qingtong in case they were accused of meddling in the affairs of the imperial family. However, they didn't have to worry about Shi Qingqing. No matter how powerful the top 10 students were, could they be more powerful than the fifth prince? Even if Shi Qingqing could enter the holy court of the Empire of Qin in the future, she wouldn't be able to surpass the fifth prince. Under these circumstances, helping Yu Wenxue was naturally the right thing to do. Thinking of this, the elite class students instantly obeyed Yu Wenshue's orders and attacked Shi Qingqing. Bang bang bang. In just an instant, Shi Qingqing fell into a besiegement. However, with Shi Qingqing's strength, it was quite easy for her to break out of this encirclement. The top 10 students on the genius ranking weren't that easy to deal with. However, just as Shi Qingqing was about to leave and find a chance to explain to Yu Wenxue in the future, whoosh. An invisible force suddenly blended in with the attacks aimed at Shi Qingqing and swept towards Shi Qingqing. With a pu sound, without anyone noticing, that attack suddenly entered Shi Qingqing's body. Shi Qingqing's body suddenly froze. In an instant, the flow of her aura around her body became sluggish. In this sluggish moment, Yu Wenshue's punch landed squarely on Shi Qingqing's chest. Bang! Ah! In an instant, a muffled sound suddenly rang out, accompanied by Shi Qingqing's blood-curdling scream. Shi Qingqing clutched her chest and fell to the ground with a thump. Before she could react, a pile of attacks had already engulfed her. With so many attacks, even if Shi Qingqing was powerful, it was enough to make her suffer. Especially her face, which had been ripped off, revealing a red rash that hadn't completely healed. In an instant, a sharp and shrill cry rang out in the sky. In the next second, Shi Qingqing's figure suddenly flew up, disappearing from the square in a few moments. While Yu Wenxue and Shi Qingqing were fighting like dogs, Luo Qingtong had already walked to the front of the plaza, where the top student stood. Hearing Shi Qingqing's sharp scream behind her, she narrowed her eyes and smiled. There were always people who overestimated themselves and wanted to find a sense of existence on her. She could only reluctantly fulfill his wish. "Are you Luo Qingtong?" When Luo Qingtong stood up, a voice suddenly came from the side. Luo Qingtong turned her head and saw a girl in purple looking at her. That young lady was dressed luxuriously, her temperament bright and beautiful, dignified and generous. At first glance, it was obvious that she was a young lady from a large aristocratic family. Her body carried a pampered arrogance. However, the young girl in front of him gave off a very straightforward feeling and wasn't annoying at all. She looked at Luo Qingtong, raised her hand and flicked the folded whip in her hand. She smiled and said, "That scene just now wasn't bad. Yu Wenxue needs to be taught a lesson. Otherwise, she really thinks that the whole world is her mother just because she has the support of Tianyu's royal family and Yuan Mo." Luo Qingtong laughed instantly. This young lady was quite interesting. Luo Qingtong had been in Tianyu Empire for so long, but this was the first time she heard someone daring to scold Yu Wenxue, and so ruthlessly. Which family did this young lady come from? She looked at the other party and nodded lightly. "I am Luo Qingtong, and you are?" "Ling Yu, Chapter 488. The legitimate daughter of Duke Ling's mansion? No wonder she dared to say such things about Yu Wenxue. Duke Ling's mansion was a first-class duke's mansion in Tianyu Empire and was greatly relied on by the emperor. Their status in Tianyu Empire was similar to the Luo family in Dongli country. Most importantly, the old Duke Ling and the old master of the Lanhua family were close friends. Based on this point alone, Ling Yu's status in Tianyu Empire wasn't inferior to Yu Wenshue's. No wonder she dared to say such things about Yu Wenxue and wasn't afraid of being punished. While the two of them were talking, Yu Wenxue arrived with her lackeys. Seeing Luo Qingtong and Ling Yu talking together, she immediately snorted and glared at them. Yu Wenxue was also first place in this year's enrollment. As for how much of it was fake, no one knew. In any case, Tianyu Empire was vast and had many counties. It was easy for Yu Wenxue to get first place. She glared fiercely at the two of them. Before Luo Qingtong could say anything, Ling Yu sneered and retorted. "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen anyone prettier than you? Yu Wenxue, look at yourself. You look like you're going to frustrate someone to death and you still have the nerve to stand in first place? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at?" Yu Wenxue had just fought with Shi Qingqing and her clothes were a bit messy, but it definitely wasn't to the point of frustrating someone to death, as Ling Yu said. It was obvious that Ling Yu was deliberately dissing Yu Wenxue. Yu Wenxue gritted her teeth in anger after being mercilessly ridiculed by Ling Yu. Don't be too smug. Especially you, Luo Qingtong. She couldn't use the power of Tianyu's imperial family to deal with Luo Qingtong. The latter wasn't afraid of them breaking off the engagement. But that didn't mean she couldn't do anything to Luo Qingtong. There were all kinds of competitions in Tianyu branch. Sooner or later, she would teach Luo Qingtong a lesson. There was also Ling Yu, the bitch who had fought with her since childhood. Yuan Shui looked at the two of them and gritted her teeth. Luo Qingtong was too lazy to pay attention to her. She was barking like a mad dog. However, Ling Yu, was unwilling to be outdone. Humph. If you can't win, then you'll just say those words. Yuan Shui, after so many years, you still haven't made any progress. If you have the ability, then just do it. If you don't, then shut up. As she spoke, she cracked the whip in her hand. Yuan Shui was so angry that her nose was almost crooked. At this moment, the voice of the principal of the Tianyu Branch Academy rang out. Silence. Following his words, the commotion in the square fell silent. In an instant, the gazes of the crowd gathered on the principal of Tianyu Branch. Today is the competition for the prize for the first place among the freshmen. It's also a grand occasion for our academy's new semester. Everyone, please pay attention. Next, I will announce the rules of the contest. All the first-place students will enter the space of the Academy's historical tablet with their consciousness to challenge it. Apart from their own strength, no external help can be used. At the end of the contest, all 10 weapons will be taken away. In the space of the Academy's historical tablet, killing, fighting, and all possible methods are allowed. The winner will have their names recorded in the Academy's historical tablet. The better the results, the higher the ranking in the Academy's historical tablet. I hope everyone will do their best. Bring glory to Tianyu Branch Academy. As he spoke, he suddenly raised his right hand and swung it down. Then, let the competition for the prize for the first place begin. As he waved his hand, countless rays of light shot out from the Academy's historical tablet and enveloped the crowd of top students. Swoosh. Chapter 489. Swish, swish, swish. As Luo Qingtong's figure appeared, many first-place students also appeared beside her. Obviously, this was the space in the Academy's historical tablet. As Luo Qingtong and the others appeared here, the surrounding space suddenly vibrated. 10 passageways suddenly appeared in the darkness in front of him. There was a huge bronze door at the top of each passage. A weapon suddenly appeared above each of the 10 passages. These 10 weapons were the spoils of war for the first-place freshman reward. It was very obvious that the first-place freshmen could enter whichever passageway they wanted to obtain a weapon. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and looked at the 10 weapon shadows floating above the passages. She easily felt a trace of inscription aura from one of the long swords. This trace of aura might be too weak for others to sense. However, Luo Qingtong possessed the life and death dual forms sword and had comprehended the inscriptions on it. Naturally, she was familiar with this trace of inscription aura. However, isn't this inscription aura too weak? Moreover, what on earth is this inscription pattern? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she looked at the long sword. Didn't that Song Qing study inscriptions for decades? How could these inscription patterns be so ugly? If not for the fact that Luo Qingtong recognized the inscription aura on it, she wouldn't have believed that this was an inscription tool. No wonder Song Qing studied inscriptions for so many years and others only thought that he was crazy. This talent was simply too touching. Fortunately, Luo Qingtong only looked for him to learn about inscriptions. Looking at the inscription pattern that Song Qing had drawn, it was obvious that he had mastered the most basic knowledge. However, the inscription pattern that he had drawn was too weak. It was as if there was nothing there. The corners of Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. While Luo Qingtong's eyes were focused on the long sword, Yuan Shui's eyes were also fixed on it. She had received the news earlier that one of the 10 weapons awarded to the first place of the new students had suddenly changed. This weapon was something that the dean had specially instructed them to exchange for. It was extremely extraordinary. That was the truth. The Wind and Lightning Sword was a martial emperor-level spirit weapon. To Song Qing, it was just a piece of trash that he could use to practice inscriptions on. But to the people of the Tianyu Empire, it was a top treasure. Even the imperial family of Tianyu only had a few martial emperor-level weapons, and they were all with the ancestors. Although Song Cheng had concealed the Wind Thunder Sword's aura, preventing others from identifying the weapon's rank, the quality of the sword was obvious. It was no ordinary weapon. At the very least, it was more precious than the other 9 weapons. Whoosh! Yuan Shui's figure flashed towards the passage. However, as soon as she moved, another figure was faster than her. Haha! Laughter that sounded like silver bells rang out. Ling Yu's figure passed by her in an instant and entered the passageway. Yuan Shui, you've also taken a fancy to this weapon? Sorry, I'm the first one. As she spoke, she swung her whip, opened the bronze door, and rushed in. Ling Yu. Seeing this scene, Yuan Shui was instantly infuriated. This B*TCH must have seen that she was going to enter the passageway, so she deliberately followed her in. She even beat her to it. Thinking of this, Yuan Shui gritted her teeth so hard that they almost broke. She then rushed in. Chapter 490. Swoosh. 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 Many first-place students each chose the weapon they wanted and entered the corresponding passage. Many people had noticed the fight between Yuan Shui and Ling Yu. Some first-place students had also guessed that the weapon in this passage was the best among the 10. However, when they thought of competing with Yuan Shui and Ling Yu, many powerful first-place students flinched. One of them was the legitimate princess of the Yuan royal family, the younger sister of the genius Yuan Mo. She was extremely powerful and couldn't be offended. The other was the legitimate daughter of Duke Ling's mansion. She was one of the top students among this year's first-place students. Rather than competing with them, it was better to take a step back and fight for other weapons. Perhaps there would be a chance. Thinking of this, except for some first-place students who wanted to curry favor with the two of them, the other first-place students who wanted to win the weapon reward all went to other passages. Of course, this was also because they didn't know the level of the Wind and Thunder Sword. Otherwise, it would be worth offending the entire Tianyu Empire, let alone the two of them. After all, it was a martial emperor-level weapon. If it was given to any expert, it would be enough to receive protection from a force not weaker than the Tianyu Empire. After most of the people had left, Luo Qingtong finally figured out her current situation. Her consciousness had entered the space of the Academy's historical tablet. Because her eye technique was together with her soul, it was brought in. However, Little Pig, the Life and Death Sword, and the 9-story exquisite pagoda didn't follow in. This should be to ensure the fairness of the competition for the reward. Otherwise, the disciples of aristocratic families like Yuan Shui and Ling Yu, who were already strong and had various spiritual armors and weapons, would have no suspense at all in this competition for the reward. Now, everyone spoke with their own strength, which increased the possibility of winning. However, for Luo Qingtong, her eye technique was enough for her to sweep through. She was determined to get the Wind and Thunder Sword. Swoosh! Luo Qingtong's figure swept into the passage. 9 Ben's Maze. As her figure swept into the bronze door, 4 big words suddenly appeared in front of her. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows slightly as the scene in front of her changed. Countless passages suddenly appeared in front of him. They were surrounded by layers of dark gray walls. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. In an instant, the bloody light in her eyes intensified and her pupils turned blood red. Luo Qingtong's blood-red pupils were beautiful and bewitching to the extreme, making her look like a monster from purgatory. Beautiful, bewitching, dangerous. Whoosh! She leaped into the air and found the correct path in an instant. Then, she dashed into the depths of the maze. Yuan Shui and Ling Yu, who had entered the passage before her, were already facing each other. Both of them were the top noble ladies in the Tianyu Empire. Yuan Shui's family background was strong and her influence was strong. Ling Yu's identity was not weak either. Most importantly, she was stronger than Yuan Shui. Almost all the top students who entered this passageway were attached to the two of them. After all, their strength and influence were inferior to Yuan Shui and Ling Yu. If they didn't submit to them, they would only be eliminated. On the contrary, if they relied on them, as long as the other party was rewarded, they would also be able to obtain great benefits. Chapter 491. Bang! 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 Both parties clashed. Ling Yu's side was obviously stronger than Yu Wenshue's side. After all, her talent was much stronger than Yu Wenshue's. Some of the stronger top students were on her side. In comparison, Yu Wenshue's side was much weaker. However, just as Ling Yu and the rest thought they had won, swish! 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 As they chased Yu Wenshue into an alley, countless locust-like arrows suddenly flew out from all directions. In an instant, the top students beside Ling Yu screamed as they were hit by the arrows and disappeared into the tunnel. According to the school's historical tablet, once one failed the challenge and died, their consciousness would return to their bodies. However, the damage would be reflected back into the body, allowing the person to gain great experience. At the same time, it was also to let the other students who didn't know the situation inside see how the top students failed and directly understand their strength. This was also to train the top students. Ah! The top students who were hit by the arrows screamed as they retreated from the space of the school's historical tablet. They fell to the ground and were in a sorry state. Apart from the fear of death, holes appeared in the places where they were hit by the arrows. Although it was only a little blood, it told them that everything they experienced in the school's historical tablet was not completely fake. Bang! 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 The people around Ling Yu disappeared one by one. She also suffered serious injuries. After the round of arrows, she couldn't even stand properly. As for the people around her, from the dozens at the beginning, there were only 5 of them left. Yu Wenshue. Ling Yu's heart was filled with hatred when she saw Yu Wenshue leading people out from the corner of the tunnel next door. She never thought that Yu Wenshue would set her up. However, they had been fighting ever since they entered the 9 Bends maze. How did Yu Wenshue know that there was a mechanism in the tunnel and deliberately led her here? Haha. Ling Yu, you didn't expect this, right? Seeing her expression, Yu Wenshue was indescribably pleased. You can't believe it, right? Unfortunately, Ling Yu, you probably don't know that I have a map of the 9 Bends maze. This is the reward and privilege that my brother won. Yu Wenshue raised her head as she spoke. You must know that my royal brother broke through 3 passages in a row. Not only did he get the first place reward of the passage he chose, he also found the hidden nodes between the passages and took the weapons of the other 2 passages. It could be said that he broke the Academy's record in one fell swoop. This matter is still recorded on the Academy's historical tablet. At that time, my brother received this reward. It was given to him by the Academy's historical tablet. No one knew about it. When Yu Wenshue said this, she sneered at Ling Yu. You want to fight with me? Ling Yu, you're courting death. How do you think I should deal with you this time? Whatever you do in this historical steel, the outside world will reflect back on you. Chapter 492. Yu Wenshue, don't you dare. Before she could finish her sentence, Ling Yu had already cried out with a pale face. Humph. Why wouldn't I dare? Yu Wenshue sneered at Ling Yu. You don't think that this is outside, do you? Ling Yu, isn't it normal for something to happen in the school's historical tablet? So many people have come in here and something will happen to them. Why should you, Ling Yu, be safe and sound? Are you joking? Haha. When Yu Wenshue said this, she laughed loudly. Ling Yu, let me tell you, no matter what I do to you here, your Duke Ling's mansion won't be able to find me. It's a pity that Luo Qingtong didn't come in. Otherwise, I'll let her have a taste of this with you. Let's see if she can still put on airs in front of me as my royal brother's fiancée. Thinking of how Luo Qingtong had forced her to kneel and apologize in front of so many people, Yu Wenshue's heart was filled with hatred. That slut, wasn't she just relying on the fact that her royal brother had to marry her, so she didn't dare to do anything to her? If she made a fool of herself in front of the entire school and lost her reputation, Let's see if she can still be arrogant in front of her. She even put on airs as her sister-in-law. How disgusting. Yuan Shua gritted her teeth as she thought. Not far away, Luo Qingtong, who had just caught up, suddenly raised her eyebrows. She didn't expect to be implicated even when her own people weren't around. Originally, Luo Qingtong was still thinking about whether to help Ling Yu. After all, an enemy's enemy is a friend. She really liked the way Ling Yu dissed Yuan Shua. But now, it seemed that there was no need to think about it. She would definitely help Ling Yu. Not only would she help, but she would also make Yuan Shua suffer. She would let her enjoy the punishment that the other party had mentioned. Luo Qingtong snorted coldly. Ling Yu, Luo Qingtong's voice quietly swept past Yuan Shua and the others and entered Ling Yu's ears. You can still move, right? Luo Qingtong? Ling Yu was shocked when she heard her voice, but she quickly reacted. She didn't say anything and just nodded slightly. Sure, she said in her mind. Okay, follow my instructions. Luo Qingtong's words were unusually concise. She was not afraid that Ling Yu would not do as she said. Now, other than her, who else could help Ling Yu? Let's not talk about suicide first. Yuan Shua had so many people surrounding her, how could she not guard against this move? Therefore, if Ling Yu wanted to be fine, she could only listen to her. He could only trust her. Run towards the alley in front. Keep running, don't turn. No matter what happens, don't stop. If you believe me, then do it. If you don't, then it's up to you. As Luo Qingtong spoke, her figure had already leaped out from the darkness and swept towards the alley that she had chosen. It was a wooden puppet alley. She would give Yuan Shua a huge surprise. When Luo Qingtong's figure flew up, Ling Yu also made up her mind. Whoosh! The long whip in her hand lashed out like a poisonous dragon. In an instant, the two top students in front of her were sent flying. You guys cover me and rush out. I won't treat you unfairly, she said to the 5 top students who were following her. The 5 of them were also injured and moved when they heard her words. They instantly rushed in front of those who wanted to stop Ling Yu from leaving and used their bodies to block the other party. Anyway, according to the school's historical tablet, it was impossible to really die. At most, they would suffer a little. To be able to get Ling Yu's promise, it was worth it. Catch her. Seeing Ling Yu rush out of the encirclement, Yuan Shua immediately stomped her feet and chased after her. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Ling Yu's figure constantly swept through the passageway and kept rushing forward. Chapter 493. Bang! Just as she was about to rush into the alley that Luo Qingtong had mentioned, a tall figure suddenly rushed out from the front. That figure was almost 2 meters tall and was as sturdy as an iron tower. Its entire body flickered with a metallic luster. Ironwood armored man. When this ironwood armored man appeared, Ling Yu's heart trembled violently. She almost couldn't control herself and stopped in her tracks. However, when she thought of what Luo Qingtong had said in her mind, she still braced herself and rushed forward. Dying in the hands of these armored men was better than being humiliated to death by Ling Yu. Moreover, Luo Qingtong and Yuan Shua didn't have a good relationship. It was unlikely that she would harm her. Even if she really used herself as bait to send herself to her death, as long as she could deal with Yuan Shua, she was willing to die. In any case, she wouldn't really die in the space of the historical tablet. At most, she wouldn't want the weapon reward this time. She wanted Yuan Shua to be unlucky. With that thought, Ling Yu rushed into the alley without any hesitation. She didn't care about the armored men that appeared in front of her one after another. However, the strange thing was that after she rushed into the alley, those armored men didn't attack her. After they appeared, they just stood there. Yuan Shua, who had stopped chasing, was stunned when she saw this scene. She naturally knew that the alley in front of her was the armored man alley, so she didn't continue to chase. However, looking at the current situation, this armored man Ali's mechanism array seemed to have malfunctioned? It actually didn't attack Ling Yu. When she realized this, Yu Wenxue instantly widened her eyes. How could this be? It was a small matter that Ling Yu ran away, but it was a big matter that she snatched the weapon reward. How could Yu Wenxue allow the thing in her hands to fly away? Moreover, it was rare for her to find an opportunity to deal with Ling Yu. If she missed this opportunity, she didn't know when the next time would be. She definitely couldn't let her escape so easily. With that thought, Yu Wenxue suddenly waved her hand. Chase! The people around her also realized that the mechanism in front of them seemed to have malfunctioned and immediately rushed forward without hesitation. However, just as they rushed into the alley, a voice rang out. In an instant, those mechanical mechas that were originally standing still and allowing Ling Yu to pass through suddenly moved. Boom boom boom. They charged towards Yu Wenxue and the others. Almost instantly, Yu Wenxue and the others were surrounded. At this moment, Ling Yu had already rushed out of the alley. Before she could catch her breath, she heard screams coming from behind her. This voice, it seemed to belong to Yu Wenxue and the others. Ling Yu was stunned for a moment before she turned her head to look behind her. The corners of her eyes twitched when she saw what was in front of her. In the middle of the alley, the mecha soldiers surrounded Yu Wenxue and the others. Then, they began to tear their clothes. Ling Yu stared dumbfoundedly at Yu Wenxue and the others as their clothes were torn apart by the attacks of the mechanical armored men. Among them, Yu Wenshue's screams were about to break through the sky. Ling Yu looked at all of this in a daze, not knowing what was going on. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from beside her. Still not leaving? Do you want to watch a restricted performance here? Chapter 494. Luo Qingtong also added a little something for Yu Wenxue and the others. At this time, the group of naked people were hugging each other. Luo Qingtong looked at this scene and felt her eyes burn. She immediately turned and left. Ling Yu also hurriedly followed. You did all of this? She was shocked. What does it have to do with me? Luo Qingtong glanced at her. They were chasing after you. Yu Wenxue and the others were chasing after Ling Yu. Even if something happened, it was related to Ling Yu. What did it have to do with her? Ling Yu was speechless. So she was a professional scapegoat? But thinking about it, if being a scapegoat could make Yu Wenxue so miserable, then being a scapegoat was fine. Thinking about how Yu Wenxue wanted to use such a vicious method on her, but it was all returned to her by Luo Qingtong, Ling Yu felt proud and elated. At the same time, she had a good impression of Luo Qingtong and was curious about her. I didn't expect you to know how to use formations. She looked at Luo Qingtong, her eyes shining. Everyone said that 5th Prince Yu Wenma's fiancée's talent was average and that her strength wasn't outstanding. But now it seems that everyone was wrong. Just based on Luo Qingtong's ability to reverse the mechanism set by the mechanical armors, how could she be a useless idiot with no talent at all? Tianyu's imperial family was really blind. Especially Yu Wenxue. He was so foolish that he couldn't be any more foolish. If she hadn't looked down on Luo Qingtong and was still thinking about how to deal with her, why would the latter help her and not her future sister-in-law? Thinking about the miserable scene Yu Wenxue would face when they went out, Ling Yu felt a burst of joy. What was this called? The evils brought on by oneself were the hardest to bear. As the two spoke, they arrived at the location of the Thunder Wind Sword. Seeing the Thunder Wind Sword floating above the white jade platform, Ling Yu thought for a moment and took a step back. Go take it. Since you helped me, I won't fight with you over it. You can have this reward. In Ling Yu's view, Luo Qingtong's strength was definitely inferior to hers. Even if she was injured, it would be easy for her to snatch the sword. However, Luo Qingtong had helped her and she wasn't an ungrateful person. Without Luo Qingtong, she wouldn't even be standing here. She didn't even know how she would be humiliated by Yu Wenxue. What kind of person would he be if he continued to snatch the reward? Ling Yu disdained to do such a thing and immediately asked Luo Qingtong to get it. The latter turned his head and looked at her with a faint smile. With Luo Qingtong's strength, there was no need for Ling Yu to yield to her. The reason why he didn't immediately take the wind and lightning sword was because he wanted to see what Ling Yu would choose. If the other party was ungrateful and turned hostile, then Luo Qingtong would definitely teach her what it meant to be a good person. However, since the other party had asked her to take it, Luo Qingtong felt that she could give her another big gift. I just heard from Yuan Xue that Yuan Ma broke the record and received 3 rewards in a row. She looked at Ling Yu. That's right. When the latter heard her question, she was stunned for a moment and then nodded. However, she quickly came to her senses. Wait, don't tell me you're thinking of doing the same? Ling Yu looked at Luo Qingtong with a dumbfounded expression as she wandered around. Don't even think about it. The barrier between the passageways isn't that easy to find. Yuan Ma relied on half of his strength and half of his luck. Chapter 495. Wang. A door of light suddenly appeared in front of her. Damn, 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 damn. Ling Yu looked at the door of light in front of her and then at the other passageway behind it. Her eyes instantly widened. If she hadn't been taught etiquette since she was young, she would definitely have lost her composure. Oh my god. Luo Qingtong really found the nodes between the passageways. While Ling Yu was still in shock, Luo Qingtong had already picked up the Thunder Wind sword and looked at her. Together? She said as she extended her hand towards Ling Yu. Let's make it clear first. 9 weapons, take as many as you can. The weapons will be mine and the ranking will be yours. Is that okay? Luo Qingtong really didn't like Yuan Ma's name at the top of the school's historical tablet. Wasn't Yuan Xue very proud of how outstanding her royal brother was in Tianyu branch? She even wanted to use Yuan Ma's privilege in the school's historical tablet to set her up. In that case, don't blame her for stepping on Yuan Ma. Number 1 prodigy in Tianyu branch? Chi. Luo Qingtong laughed coldly and disdainfully. As long as she was willing, Yuan Ma's title as number 1 prodigy in Tianyu branch wasn't even worth mentioning. However, Luo Qingtong didn't want to leave the lower class. Firstly, she wanted to learn inscriptions from Song Cheng. Secondly, she didn't like the teaching methods of the elite class. What one-on-one tutoring, correcting mistakes in cultivation methods and martial techniques. These might be useful to other students and were regarded as treasures. But to Luo Qingtong, who had eye techniques, it was completely useless. Were the teachers of the elite class able to comprehend martial techniques as fast as she could with her ocular technique? Luo Qingtong only wanted them to impart knowledge and didn't need any additional guidance. Therefore, she wasn't prepared to accept the glory of stepping on Yuan Ma. It didn't matter who stepped on Yuan Ma as long as she didn't see him hanging high above. She didn't know why they were so comfortable using the title of prodigy that the original owner's mother got. Luo Qingtong sneered. Ling Yu was still in a daze when she held Lu Qingtong's hand. She didn't expect Luo Qingtong to make such a suggestion. But the girl didn't seem to be joking. She then looked at the door of light that appeared in front of her. Ling Yu couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Perhaps what Luo Qingtong said might really come true. Stepping on the number 1 genius Yuan Ma. Thinking about this possibility, Ling Yu's heart was filled with excitement. Okay. She held Luo Qingtong's hand tightly. While the two of them reached an agreement, in the outside world, on the plaza of the Tianyu branch. Ah! Yuan Xue's shriek suddenly resounded through the sky. The moment Luo Qingtong took the wind and thunder sword, the entire passage closed. She and the top students were all ejected from the tunnel. The moment the group of people's consciousness returned to their bodies, their clothes were torn to shreds, revealing their shining white bodies. At the same time, ambiguous marks appeared on their bodies one after another. Those marks made it obvious what had happened inside. Especially Yuan Xue, the marks on her body were densely packed. Who knew how many people doted on her? Seeing the ambiguous, drooling, or disdainful gazes of the people around her, Wuxia screamed loudly and hugged her tattered clothes. Chapter 496. What exactly did Ling do in the space of the historical tablet? Was she the one who controlled those ironwood armored soldiers? That B*TCH actually plotted against her. To think that she had pretended to be frightened and flustered. It was all a lie. Wuxia was furious. As she scolded the people who were looking at her, she gritted her teeth and searched for Ling Yu's traces. Ling Yu's figure was nowhere to be seen among the top students. Luo Qingtong was nowhere to be seen. This meant that the two of them were still in the space of the historical tablet. However, Wuxia knew that if they were ejected from the passageway, it meant that the weapon reward had already been obtained by someone else. Everyone inside, including the person who received the weapon as a reward, would be teleported out. How could Ling not be out yet? This was impossible. Just as Wuxia was thinking this, suddenly, buzz. The huge inscription on the tablet above the square suddenly emitted a strong light. Bang 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 bang. Another group of people was ejected from the space of the historical tablet. However, no one was paying attention to their sorry state. Everyone's eyes were gathered on the square, on the huge pure silver monument. Bang! A loud sound came from the high platform where the mentors were. The Jianghu branch headmaster stood up abruptly and knocked over the chair behind him. The historical tablet is glowing. He looked at the huge silver tablet that was emitting light in disbelief. His eyes and heart were filled with ecstasy. Good. Good. The Jianghu branch headmaster said the word good twice in a row. The surprise in his voice was almost overflowing. The mentors behind him were also overjoyed. The fact that the historical tablet was glowing meant that another student had broken through the barrier between the passageways and started to set a new ranking record. The last time the historical tablet glowed was when Yuanma was fighting for the weapon reward. At that time, the genius of the royal family broke through 3 passageways and took away 3 weapon rewards. No one knew which student would break through the barrier between the passageways this time and how many rewards they would receive. I think it should be 2, one of the mentors said with a smile. Even with Yuanma's strength and talent, he only received 3. Even if a student broke through the barrier this time, 2 should be the limit. Before this instructor could finish his words, another instructor's voice rang out. I don't think so. The space of the historical tablet only looks at one's strength and potential. What if that student has some unique talent in this area? I think it's possible for him to get 3. That's true. This mentor's words caused many others to agree. Back then, UNMO had been able to break through the barrier between the tunnels because of luck. If this student didn't rely on luck to break through the barrier, then it wasn't impossible for him to obtain 3 weapons as a reward. Jianghu branch headmaster. For hundreds of years, the Jianghu branch headmaster had produced such a stunning genius. He shone brightly in the sacred academy of the Empire of Qin. It would be extremely difficult for the other students of the Jianghu branch headmaster to surpass him, even if it was only the results of his consciousness. Once they surpassed him, it meant that they had the potential not to lose to Yuanma, or even surpass him. But was that possible? Chapter 497. Ling was stunned in the history tablet space. Luo Qingtong brought her through one tunnel after another. When they reached the place, she let her take the weapon as a reward. Ling even suspected that she was holding a fire stick and not a prize for the first place. Wasn't Luo Qingtong too amazing? Ling watched as she smoothly passed through one obstacle after another. The process was so smooth that it was as if she had done it thousands of times. Ling even suspected that she had a map like Wuxia. However, Wuxia had the map because of Yuanma. Why did Luo Qingtong have it? With Tianyu's royal family and Yuanma's indifference towards her, she definitely wouldn't have a share of the map. So all of this was because of Luo Qingtong's strength? Oh my god. To be able to do this, how high was Luo Qingtong's talent and potential? That was why the history tablet gave her such preferential treatment. Oh my god. Ling Yu hugged the weapons, her entire body going numb. Tianyu's royal family actually disdained such a person, and Yuan Shue actually humiliated her. Was there something wrong with their brains? And it was a meteorite crater. Ling Yu watched in shock as Luo Qingtong threw the last weapon to her and said, "Remember, after we get out, these weapons are all mine." Luo Qingtong wasn't afraid that Ling Yu wouldn't take the weapons as a reward. Those who dared to take her things would end up in a miserable state. If Ling Yu wasn't afraid of death, she could try to eat Tun Tun. However, she believed that Ling Yu was a smart person. Especially after seeing her strength. Buzz. When Luo Qingtong and Ling Yu took the last weapon, the pure silver monument shone brightly. The two of them were ejected from the space of the history tablet at the same time. Swish. 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 9 weapons all floated above Ling Yu's head. Everyone's eyes widened at the sight. 9 weapons. In other words, except for the last one, Ling Yu had taken all the weapons from the other passages. Such an achievement was simply unparalleled in both ancient and modern times. Since the establishment of the Tianyu Branch Academy, no. Since the establishment of the branch of the Holy Academy in the Empire of Qin, such a situation had never happened before. Ling Yu was going to defy the heavens. However, only Ling Yu knew that all of this was brought by Luo Qingtong. The young miss of the Luo family, who was despised by the imperial family of Tianyu and looked down upon by Yuan Mo, was the true creator of this miracle. And the last weapon she lacked was none other than the wind and thunder sword in Luo Qingtong's hand. In other words, as long as Luo Qingtong was willing, she could take the reward of 10 weapons at any time. No, she had already received the reward of 10 weapons. Ling Yu thought of the agreement she had with Luo Qingtong, which was that the weapon would be hers and the glory would be hers. Damn, the other party had pushed her out to be a professional scapegoat again. The corner of Ling Yu's lips twitched when she saw Yuan Shui looking at her with eyes that were about to spit fire. However, she liked this kind of scapegoat. She didn't know why Luo Qingtong had to hide her strength and stay in the trash class. However, it would be a waste to reject the benefits that came knocking on her door. Moreover, seeing Yuan Shui explode in anger but not being able to do anything to her made her feel exceptionally comfortable. Ling Yu had often been ridiculed by Yuan Shui because of Yuan Mo's strength. Now, the tables had finally turned. Buzz. When Ling Yu and Luo Qingtong appeared, the halo on the pure silver monument suddenly retracted. Chapter 498. Ling Yu, That's impossible. When this name formed and suppressed her royal brother's name, Yuan Shui, who had just put on her clothes in a fluster, cried out in disbelief. How could this be? Her brother was a rare genius in Tianyu's royal family. Even the instructors of the Empire of Qin Saint Court praised him. They said that for a student like him to appear in the school, they really didn't know how they were able to accept it. As a heaven-grade student who entered the Empire of Qin Saint Court, Yuan Mo's achievements in Tianyu school were enormous. But he was actually suppressed by someone. 9 weapons. How could Ling Yu achieve this? Could it be that her talent and potential were even greater than her brother's? That's impossible. That's absolutely impossible. Yuan Shui didn't want to believe it. But the truth was right in front of her eyes. She had no choice but to believe it. And Luo Qingtong actually also obtained a weapon. Wind and Thunder Sword. That weapon was actually the Wind and Thunder Sword. Ling Yu, that bitch, must have done it on purpose. She met Luo Qingtong in another passage and deliberately gave the weapon she wanted to Luo Qingtong to humiliate her. Not only Yuan Shui, but the top students who entered the Wind and Thunder Sword passage with her also thought so. Because they didn't see Luo Qingtong in the Wind and Thunder Sword passage. Ling Yu obtained a total of 9 weapons, but she didn't take the weapon that she had personally entered the Wind and Thunder Sword passage. Wasn't this obvious enough? Since the other party had the ability to obtain the other 9 weapons, but didn't take the Wind and Thunder Sword, it was obvious that she gave it to Luo Qingtong to humiliate Yuan Shui. With that thought in mind, Yuan Shui spat out a mouthful of blood and fell limply to the ground. She had been ejected from the very beginning and had appeared naked in front of all the teachers and students of the academy. Then, her own imperial brother had been suppressed, and Ling Yu, a woman who had been at odds with her since she was young, had suppressed her instead. Piece by piece, Yuan Shui's scheme against Ling Yu failed, but she was the one who got tricked instead. In the end, she even witnessed her glory, and even Luo Qingtong rose to the heavens with her. Seeing the 2 women she hated the most standing at the top of the limelight, Yuan Shui couldn't stand the stimulation and fell to the ground with a bang. 7th Princess. The subordinates of Tianyu's royal family all rushed over. However, most people still focused their attention on Ling Yu, and Luo Qingtong. Right at this moment, buzz, the pure silver steel lit up again. A name appeared above Yuan Ma's name again, pushing Yuan Ma's name, which had been suppressed to 2nd place, down again. Luo Qingtong. As that name appeared, everyone's eyes widened. Wow! Luo Qingtong's name actually appeared on the steel, and it's tied with Ling Yu, Oh my god. Ling Yu, couldn't have brought her through the passageway, right? Oh my god. If I had known that following Ling Yu, would bring me such benefits, would have followed her regardless. Why would I bother to snatch the reward myself? A group of students who didn't take sides were vexed. However, they didn't know that they had guessed the truth of the matter wrong from the start. The one who was really brought through the passageway was Ling Yu, and not Luo Qingtong. But who would have thought that a marquis's legitimate daughter from a small and inferior country would have such ability? Suppressing Yuan Ma, and even bringing along Ling Yu, Chapter 499. Luo Qingtong didn't expect such a scene to occur. She had asked Ling Yu, to take all the weapons. She didn't expect that she would have a share in the ranking. Was it because she had broken the barrier? No matter what, suppressing Yuan Ma was an unexpected gain. Plus, with Ling Yu, in front of her, no one would notice her. She could still stay in the lower class. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong was very satisfied. She had achieved all her goals. On the other side, Yuan Shui, who had just woken up, saw Luo Qingtong's name on the pure silver monument. She instantly spat out another mouthful of blood. In a fit of anger, no matter how hard the others tried, they couldn't wake her up. They could only send her to the pharmacist academy to ask for help. The Tianyu imperial family was in a panic. Luo Qingtong leisurely appeared in the courtyard of Song Cheng's dormitory with the Wind and Thunder Sword. I have completed the test you mentioned. She threw the Wind and Thunder Sword to Song Cheng. Song Cheng caught it and nodded in satisfaction. Very good, very good. Although Song Cheng didn't go out, he had been paying attention to the situation outside. He had already known about Ling Yu, obtaining 9 weapons and suppressing Yuan Ma at the first moment. Naturally, he also knew that Luo Qingtong didn't obtain the Wind and Thunder Sword by accident. No matter what method she used to obtain the Wind and Thunder Sword, she had confirmed that the Wind and Thunder Sword was an inscription tool. She had already passed his test. From tomorrow onwards, you don't have to go to the lower class. Come directly to my place to learn inscriptions. If you perform well, I will naturally give you pointers on the cultivation techniques and martial techniques you want to learn. Song Cheng waved his hand. However, Luo Qingtong didn't want to accept his teachings and directly rejected him. No, I still want to go to the lower class. As for inscriptions, I will come every night to teach you. Luo Qingtong didn't have any intention of sucking up to Song Cheng, a Sage Realm expert. Moreover, even if the other party was a Saint Stage expert, his understanding of martial skills and cultivation methods might not be able to match up to his eye technique. Luo Qingtong had too many secrets. She didn't want Song Cheng to pry on them. Fine, fine, fine. Do whatever you want. Song Cheng glared at Luo Qingtong. It was rare that he was willing to teach this girl cultivation, but she didn't appreciate it. She would cry in the future. However, Song Qing did not know that he would be the one crying in the future. She was such a good disciple, yet he didn't pester her to get his hands on her. What a loss. After returning from Song's city, Luo Qingtong was stopped by Ling Yu, and another young man with a calm temperament. I've heard that you've come to teacher Song Cheng's place, so I've been waiting here. Luo Qingtong, thank you so much. Haha. Didn't you see Yuan Shui? She's about to die from anger. Ling Yu's laughter was like a silver bell, overflowing with joy. As she spoke, she pulled the calm young man beside her over. Let me introduce you. This is my elder brother, Ling Tianhan. When she mentioned Ling Tianhan, Ling Yu's expression was very proud. My elder brother is a genius who isn't any weaker than Yuan Mo. What a pity. But this time, my elder brother will definitely be able to enter the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. He has now returned to the top 10 of the genius rankings. Chapter 500. Luo Qingtong looked at the young and steady man. The latter's face was handsome and resolute, his figure was tall and straight, and his temperament was steady. His right hand seemed to have suffered a serious injury, and the muscles and bones of his wrist and forearm were all connected together. Even his meridians had completely dissolved and disappeared. Looking at the other party's hand, Luo Qingtong finally understood what Ling Yu meant when she said, "What a pity," and the sadness in her words. With such an injury, Ling Tianhan could still return to the top 10 of the genius list. This meant that his talent and tenacity were not something an ordinary person could compare to. It was a pity for such a person. If his hand was not crippled, Yu Wenma's light would probably not be so bright. Luo Qingtong knew from the original owner's memory that when Yu Wenma entered Tianyu Branch School, there was a genius in Tianyu Branch School who could rival him. In fact, he was even vaguely suppressing him. But in the end, something happened to that genius and he quickly fell silent. After that, Yu Wenma completely covered the sky and shone brightly. Now it seemed that this genius was Ling Yu's elder brother, Ling Tianhan. When Luo Qingtong looked over, Ling Tianhan nodded lightly at her. The man's expression was steady, and his temperament was firm. Even if one of his hands was crippled, he did not bother to hide it. Instead, he openly exposed it, without the slightest trace of inferiority. He nodded lightly at Luo Qingtong and thanked her in a deep voice. This time in the school's historical monument space, thank you very much. Duke Ling's mansion will definitely not let this matter slide so easily. Yu Wenxue must pay the price. Even if she is the 7th princess of the imperial family. Everyone involved will also be punished. Junior Luo, is there anyone you don't like? As he spoke, he looked at Luo Qingtong. If there is, you can give me a list. My Duke Ling's mansion will do our best. Was he hinting that she could use this opportunity to take revenge on those who followed Yu Wenxue to deal with her? Luo Qingtong chuckled as she looked at the man in front of her. She felt that the Ling siblings were really a pair of wonderful people. All right, I appreciate Senior Ling's kind intentions. I'll give you a list tomorrow. After entering the Tianyu Branch School, those who dared to bully her had already suffered the consequences of their own actions. Naturally, there was no need for Duke Ling's mansion to do anything. However, Luo Qingtong still remembered that in the memory of the original Luo Qingtong, there were many noble ladies who didn't have much strength, but their auras were very high. They followed her to humiliate the original Luo Qingtong. Those people were obviously not in the Tianyu Branch School. Now that Ling Tianhan offered to use the power of the Ling family to avenge her, Luo Qingtong would not refuse. Thus, he agreed to it without hesitation. After receiving her answer, Ling Tianhan nodded and left. Ling Yu followed Luo Qingtong all the way back to the dormitory. They chattered along the way. Sigh. Luo Qingtong, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. The Tianyu imperial family is really blind. I wonder what kind of expression they would have if they knew that you were the one who broke Yu Wenma's record and I was just a bystander. Haha. Luo Qingtong looked at her with a faint smile. You can go and tell them. See if they will believe it. The Tianyu imperial family was obstinate and self-opinionated. They had been looking down on the Luo family for a long time. How could they believe that she was the one who broke Yuan Ma's record? No matter what Ling Yu said, they would think that she was lying and deliberately pushing the blame onto Luo Qingtong to humiliate them. As long as the Ling family's people weren't crazy, they wouldn't go and tell the Tianyu imperial family. Otherwise, not only would they fail to please them, they would also be suspected. This was why Luo Qingtong didn't hesitate to show her strength in front of Ling Yu. Chapter 501. Ling Yu smiled embarrassedly and touched her nose. Why do you say the same thing as my elder brother? My elder brother also said that I can't tell anyone about it. He told me to keep it to myself and just pretend to be obedient. As Ling Yu spoke, she suddenly looked at Luo Qingtong with a smile. Sigh, to be honest, why don't you consider my elder brother? You see, he's so compatible with you, and he's so calm. He's definitely different from Yuan Ma, who's just a playboy and doesn't have any sense of responsibility. Before she could finish her sentence, little Ming Zun, who had been suppressing his anger, had already scurried out of Luo Qingtong's sleeve. She has a man. Looking at Ling Yu, Yi Qianxian said word by word. That cute little face was full of coldness at this moment. The aura around him was as cold as a blade. Luo Qingtong and Ling Yu were both stunned. The former was wondering why he came out of her sleeve and suddenly said such a sentence. The latter was looking at the cute little Ming Zun with shining eyes. Huh, so cute. What's this? Luo Qingtong, is this a doll you made? As she spoke, she wanted to touch Yi Qianxian, but was pushed away by Luo Qingtong. This is mine. As she spoke, she took little Ming Zun into her arms. Although little Ming Zun was still emitting a strong coldness, he still obediently let her hold him in her arms. But that pair of cute big eyes still stared coldly at Ling Yu. Tisk, stingy. Seeing that Luo Qingtong protected little Ming Zun so well, Ling Yu was drooling in her heart, but she couldn't do anything. If it was someone else, she might use her identity as the legitimate daughter of Duke Ling's mansion to force it. But if it was Luo Qingtong, forget it. She didn't even care about 7th Princess Yuan Shua, and she was so powerful. She wasn't stupid enough to go against her. But, can't I just touch him? I don't want anything from you, she muttered. No, this belongs to me alone. Luo Qingtong looked at her with warning eyes. You'd better not touch him, or you'll have to bear the consequences. Good, good, good. I won't touch him, okay? You're the boss now. You have the final say. Ling Yu rolled her eyes as she spoke. Then, she joked, don't tell me that he was the one who said you had a man? This doll is quite interesting. When Ling Yu said this, Yi Qianxian's entire body stiffened. He let Luo Qingtong hug him and waited for Luo Qingtong's answer with all his concentration. Yes. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at Ling Yu. He is my little man, so you better not have any ideas about him. When Luo Qingtong's words fell, Yi Qianxian's violent and oppressive aura dissipated in an instant. He looked at the girl in front of him with a deep gaze. He felt that his heart had never been as lively as it was now. His heartbeat was beating like a drum, and he couldn't suppress it. This woman said that he was her man. Automatically ignoring the word little, Yi Qianxian's heart was full of joy. He even forgot that Ling Yu wanted to introduce her big brother to Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong didn't know that she had inadvertently appeased a man who was about to go berserk. After sending Ling Yu away, Luo Qingtong took Yi Qianxian back to the dormitory. Chapter 502. Boss. Little Tyrant Yuan shouted excitedly, this time, you've earned a lot in the competition for the first place. I don't know how many envious, jealous, and hateful words are spreading outside, saying that you're lucky to have caught Ling Yu's eye and be brought to the top by her. Little Tyrant Yuan curled his lips in disdain and said, those people just know how to talk. If they have the ability, they should also go and curry favor with Ling Yu. See if she's willing to bring them along. TSK. What's the use of just talking? But I really didn't expect that Ling Yu has such ability. I've never seen her so powerful before. Little Tyrant Yuan said while smacking his lips, clicking his tongue in wonder. Sima Ju, who had been silent on the side, raised his pair of midnight eyes and said, "It's not her. Ling Yu, wasn't that powerful." He looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Congratulations, boss." As soon as Sima Ju said this, Su Xiaoxiao and Little Tyrant Yuan instantly widened their eyes. Especially Su Xiaoxiao, she jumped up excitedly. Really? Wow. Qingtong, you're too powerful. Since receiving Luo Qingtong's guidance, the innocent little rabbit Su Xiaoxiao had long regarded Luo Qingtong as a god. Hearing this, she didn't doubt it at all and jumped up happily. Little Tyrant Yuan, on the other hand, was stunned for a while before he reacted. He looked at Luo Qingtong and stammered, "Boss, it's you? It's not Ling Yu, Oh my god." Little Tyrant Yuan was shocked. If Ling Yu, was brought to the first place by Luo Qingtong, then how strong was Luo Qingtong? She jumped to the first place by herself, suppressing Yuan Ma, and could also bring Ling Yu along. Ah! If I had known that there would be such a good thing, would have also fought for the first place. What a loss. The name would be recorded in the history of the Academy and be passed down through the ages. Unless someone could break the record set by Luo Qingtong and Ling Yu, in the future and obtain all 10 weapons, it would be impossible to suppress the two of them. In other words, Luo Qingtong's and Ling Yu's names would remain on the first row of the school's historical tablet. Ah! Little Overlord Yuan beat his feet and beat his chest inwardly, deeply annoyed that he had missed this opportunity. Back then, he felt that he was a piece of trash with no potential and was destined to enter the trash class. Therefore, he didn't take the entrance exam seriously and went home to sleep after casually fighting. Ah! What a huge loss. Boss, if there's an opportunity like this next time, you have to bring us along. You should know that we are your most loyal followers. He said shamelessly. Sure, Luo Qingtong looked at him and said with a lazy smile, "Do you want to be in the top 10 of the genius ranking in the year-end assessment?" Pfft! Little Tyrant Yuan almost spat out a mouthful of water when he heard this. Even the expressionless Sima Ju raised his head and looked at her with a pair of eyes that were as dark as midnight. Su Xiaoxiao blinked her eyes and froze. "Boss, you can't be serious, right? That's impossible." Little Tyrant Yuan recovered from his shock. Although he was mischievous, he still knew his limits. What was the top 10 of the genius ranking in the year-end assessment? It represented the opportunity to enter the holy court of the Empire of Qin. On that day, the competition in the Tianyu Academy would be extremely fierce. Many of the genius ranking students who were either in seclusion or out to gain experience would return to fight for the top 10. The ranking on the genius ranking actually didn't mean anything. Chapter 503. Why was Yuan Ma ranked so high on the Tianyu branch's historical tablet? That was because in his second year of school, he defeated the original number 1 on the genius ranking as a newcomer and successfully entered the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy after the year-end examination. He became one of the new heaven-grade students of the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy. As a result, his ranking on the school's historical tablet was able to surpass everyone else and become number 1. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong helping Ling Yu, obtain 9 weapons and breaking the record, she wouldn't have been able to surpass him. Now, Luo Qingtong actually wanted them to get into the top 10 of the year-end examination. This was even more unbelievable than the Arabian Nights. One had to know that there was less than half a year left before the year-end examination. Moreover, the year-end examination wasn't like other examinations. It was something that could only be challenged by oneself. Only by defeating the other party could one enter the top 10 of the genius ranking. Others couldn't help at all. Thinking of this, little Overlord Yuan instantly became listless. "Boss, don't make fun of us. This joke isn't funny at all. Luo Qingtong smiled but didn't say anything. Whether it was a joke or not, they would know in the future. Thinking of Shi Qingxing and Zhang Haopeng, who were in the top 10 of the genius ranking, Luo Qingtong's eyes turned cold. She had always been a very vengeful person. These two people took advantage of the fact that she had just arrived at the Tianyu branch to kick her while she was down. Although it was to her liking, she was still unhappy. They didn't need to think about entering the Empire of Qin's Sacred Academy in the year-end examination. Didn't they want to step on her? She would let them know who would step on who in the end. At the same time, in the land beyond the clouds. When a treasure appeared, everyone fought over it. At this moment, a silver-clothed black-haired figure walked over like he was treading on waves. In an instant, he passed by everyone and snatched the floating treasure. Ming Zun. Looking at the man who appeared in front of everyone and the people behind him wearing black field uniforms, the experts were slightly shocked. Ming Zun, didn't you never participate in the snatching of treasures? Someone couldn't help but ask. This was the king of the black field. If he were to take action, most of the people in the land beyond the clouds would have to return in defeat. As they thought of this, everyone looked at Yi Qianren with eyes that were filled with hostility. I am indeed not interested in such things. As Yi Qianxian spoke, he raised his hand and released the treasure he had snatched. It floated above his palm. This treasure will belong to whoever tells me the whereabouts of the Grand Principal of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. His gaze swept across the crowd. He didn't have the patience to slowly search for the whereabouts of the Grand Dean of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Yi Qianxian's heart had been pounding ever since he knew that he would be able to find the woman's whereabouts soon. He wanted to be faster, faster, faster. He had to find that woman as soon as possible. She was the only woman who made him feel helpless in the past 20 years. She was the woman he loved and hated. For this reason, he didn't hesitate to break his rule of never fighting for these treasures. He just wanted to find the whereabouts of the Grand Dean of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin as soon as possible. I know. At this moment, an expert said, I saw the Grand Dean of the Sacred Academy of the Empire of Qin heading in the northwest direction, where the 10,000 elephant dragon root appeared. I swear by the heavens and earth that I am not lying. Before he could finish his words, the treasure had already been thrown towards him. When he raised his head again, Yi Qianxian and the people from the black field were nowhere to be seen. Swoosh. Swoosh. Chapter 504. Tianyu Empire, Tianyu Branch Academy. After Luo Qingtong finished participating in the competition for the first place prize, she started her daily life in the lower class, Song Chang's instructor's dormitory, and her own dormitory. During the day, she would study all kinds of martial arts and knowledge related to this world in the lower class. At night, she would study inscription patterns in Song Chang's courtyard dormitory. Although Song Chang's temper was strange, he had studied inscription patterns for decades and had a solid foundation. However, he didn't have much talent. After so many years, he was still struggling at the entry level. Little Pig and Luo Qingtong felt that the inscription patterns he drew were extremely painful to the eyes. Especially Little Pig, who said without hesitation, My God, I can draw better than him with pig trotters. This inscription master's talent is so poor, he's really amazing. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. She wondered what Song Chang's expression would be if he knew that he was looked down upon by a pig. However, although Song Chang's talent was poor, he still managed to study the entry-level knowledge. With his guidance and Luo Qingtong's own eye technique, Song Chang was able to learn the inscription patterns. Soon, Luo Qingtong grasped the basic principles and usage of inscription patterns. Swoosh. Luo Qingtong raised her hand and drew an inscription pattern on the first floor of the 9-layer exquisite pagoda. Every stroke of the lines on it seemed to resonate with the space of heaven and earth. Every stroke of the brush was just right. As Luo Qingtong's wrist turned, the last inscription pattern was completed and the inscription pattern connected. With a buzz, energy flowed into the inscription pattern. This time, the inscription pattern came to life. In an instant, a piece of space was clearly cut out and absorbed into the inscription pattern. Luo Qingtong quickly pressed the inscription pattern on top of a ring she had refined earlier. In an instant, a Sumeru spatial spiritual tool was formed. Of course, it was a fake Sumeru spatial spiritual tool. According to Little Pig, this was the lowest grade spatial storage artifact. A real Sumeru spatial spiritual tool could move mountains and fill seas. It could gather spirit springs and form a world of its own. A higher grade spatial spiritual tool could form a spatial blade that could cut and shatter everything. A powerful inscription master could look down on everything. His strength was not inferior to any powerful martial artist in this world. Otherwise, how could Tian Mingzi, as an inscription master, escape from the hands of his enemies? However, Luo Qingtong was still unable to reach Tian Mingzi's level. 10 square meters. Looking down at the spatial ring she had refined, Luo Qingtong nodded with satisfaction. To be able to refine a spatial ring with a space of 10 square meters on his first try was already pretty good. Within the true Spill continent, a spatial spirit artifact had nearly disappeared. Not to mention a spatial ring of 10 square meters, even a spatial ring of 1 square meter was enough to make many powerhouses scramble like ducks. Those who didn't have a Sumeru spatial spiritual tool. People like the royal family of Tianyu didn't even have the qualifications to own a spatial spirit tool. Bang! Luo Qingtong turned around and left the space of the 9-layer exquisite pagoda. This space was opened when she won the first place of the freshman and advanced to the martial lord realm. The flow of time inside was 1 to 3. It was very suitable for cultivating and practicing inscription techniques. Luo Qingtong practiced in it when she had nothing to do. Chapter 505. Are you done refining? Little Pig impatiently jumped onto her shoulder and asked. Not bad, Luo Qingtong said as she threw the spatial ring she refined to Little Pig. 10 square meters, not bad. Oh my god. You call this not bad? You perverted woman. Little Pig caught the spatial ring and looked inside. His eyes instantly widened. 10 square meters. This was her first time refining, and she already had such a result. You call this not bad? Is this woman trying to ascend to the heavens? She should know that those inscription apprentices might not be able to refine a 1 square meter spatial ring even if they practiced for a year. Not to mention, the spatial ring refined by Luo Qingtong had an incomparably condensed space that could be expanded at any time. If it wasn't for her insufficient strength, she wouldn't have only refined a 10 square meter spatial ring. Pervert, a big pervert. Little Pig held the spatial ring and shook his head. Luo Qingtong, this woman, was born to crush people's confidence. The only one who could be on par with her and suppress her was the man beside her. Although the two of them were in different fields, they were both peerless monsters in their respective fields. Little Pig didn't even want to describe how monstrous this man was. Luo Qingtong actually didn't lose to him. Once the two of them complemented each other, it would be the nightmare of countless people. Just as Little Pig's lips were twitching, Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong with an indescribable pride. This was the woman he fancied. She was constantly giving him surprises. Alchemist, spiritual array master, inscription master. How many abilities did she have that she had yet to reveal? Come, let's go to Song City's dormitory. Luo Qingtong had already learned the 12 basic inscription patterns of the spatial inscription technique. She had also successfully refined a spatial ring. Now, she could start learning other inscription patterns. She was very interested in inscription patterns for weapons and inscription patterns for humans. The former could increase the strength of weapons and armors, and had all kinds of practical effects. The latter could even increase a cultivator's talent, making their already powerful strength even more powerful. It could be said that it was the dream of all martial artists. It was said that a powerful inscription master could transform a peerless trash into a peerless genius with a flip of his hand, and he didn't need to use any heavenly treasures. After all, in this world, treasures that could allow a cultivator to be reborn and even possess great talent were all divine medicines. These divine medicines were nurtured by the heavens and nurtured by the heavens and earth. It was rare for even one of them to appear in tens of thousands of years. But inscribers were different. As long as that powerful inscription master was willing to help, then it would only be a matter of time before the trash turned into a genius. The inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace that Tian Mingzi had left behind clearly pointed out this point. However, the Immortal Slayer Palace, a glorious inscriptionist lineage, had been destroyed. Who knew what kind of enemy they had provoked? However, it was definitely related to the divine tablet inscriptions. At that thought, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. No matter who they were, since she had inherited the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace, they were her enemies. It would be fine if the other party did not come to our door. If they did, she would have to clear the name of the Immortal Slayer Palace. At that time, she would definitely have to face the other party. Luo Qingtong was never willing to take a beating passively. Chapter 506. Swoosh. Luo Qingtong brought Little Pig and Yi Qianxian to Song Cheng's dormitory. The latter had already sensed Luo Qingtong's aura. When he saw the interspatial ring on her hand, his breath was stuck in his throat and he almost choked to death. You succeeded in refining it? He shouted in disbelief. Oh my God. When Luo Qingtong said she wanted to go back and refine an interspatial ring after learning the spatial inscription pattern technique, he thought she was joking. This stinky girl, he had studied for so many years and could only refine a few interspatial rings that were a few square meters in size. There were more failures than successes. How long had she been learning the inscription pattern technique? It had only been half a month, right? She actually wanted to refine an interspatial ring? She was simply daydreaming. Song Cheng had purposely waited here today to see her fail. He didn't expect that this girl, she actually succeeded. Song Cheng stared dumbfoundedly at the ring that was obviously freshly made. The lines of the inscription pattern on the ring were full and filled with energy. It was obvious that the ring was carved not long ago. He wanted to find a reason for Luo Qingtong to cheat, but he couldn't find a way. Her ability to refine an interspatial ring had completely surpassed his, okay? When he thought of those ugly interspatial rings that were only a few square meters in size, it was simply infuriating. He couldn't live like this anymore. He couldn't live like this. His disciple was so powerful. How many days had it been? His master had surpassed his master. Song Cheng couldn't feel happy at all, okay? How much of a scum was he? He had studied for dozens of years, but it couldn't compare to his disciple's 10 days of study. His research was simply going to the dog's stomach. Song Cheng looked at the interspatial ring that Luo Qingtong had successfully refined, and his heart was bleeding. Cough, not bad. It has some of my style, he stubbornly said. He raised his hand and quietly crushed the ugly interspatial ring that was 9 square meters in size that he had refined. What a joke. Was he looking for a blow by taking out this broken ring? Did he still want his dignity as a master? At this moment, Song Cheng seemed to have forgotten that Luo Qingtong was only learning inscription techniques from him and not becoming his disciple. However, even if he hadn't forgotten, Song Cheng would still shamelessly pretend that he didn't know. What a joke. Where could he find such a good disciple? In the future, he would have to rely on her to learn the inscription pattern technique. Song Cheng could see that Luo Qingtong's talent in inscription technique was much higher than his. Don't look at how she still needs to learn the basic principles of inscription technique from him. Once she completely grasps it, it will be time for him, her master, to seek guidance from her. Although this kind of disciple made people feel stifled, after all, they didn't get any sense of accomplishment from a master teaching a disciple. But glory! How shameless! Song Cheng thought of the bet that had caused him to stay in a small place like the Tianyu Branch Academy for so many years. Now, he finally had a chance to avenge himself. He was overjoyed. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was also indescribably amiable, completely different from his previous disdain. This kind of eccentric old man was like that. As long as it was to his liking, as long as it was to his liking, then everything was good. Song Qing previously thought that Luo Qingtong was another student that came to make fun of him. Naturally, he didn't have a good impression of her. Chapter 507. Cough, cough. Disciple, come, let me test you. Take a look at this inscription pattern. What's wrong with it? Song Qing humbly asked for advice. He had been studying inscription patterns for so long, but he had yet to refine a spatial ring larger than 10 square meters. He had to admit that it was really frustrating. His disciple had made a spatial ring larger than 10 square meters in one go. Song Qing felt that he was already mentally strong to be able to stand here. Otherwise, he would have found a piece of tofu and killed himself. Luo Qingtong looked at him with a faint smile. Song Cheng's old face was about to turn red from her stare. All right, he said in a rough voice, tell me the answer. I'll take care of that instructor Chu who has a grudge with you. I guarantee that he won't find trouble with you. This way, when you go to the secret realm of Kaiyuan, it will save you some trouble. Secret realm of Kaiyuan? Luo Qingtong looked at him. She had never heard of it. Yes. Song Qing said carelessly, it's the secret realm that your branch dean has been begging me to open. Oh. I promised him the day you came to me to become my disciple. I guess the preparation work is almost done now. In a few days, I'll inform you to go and gain experience. As he said that, he looked at Luo Qingtong and said, that place is specially for the students of the Holy Dynasty and the Empire of Qin's Holy Institute to gain experience. Although it's dangerous, the rewards are also very good. Girl, you're not weak. You can be considered a rare genius in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. Going to gain experience, there will be great benefits for you. Just be careful. As for that Yuan Ma and the Tianyu imperial family, don't worry about them. They look down on you. If I wasn't restricted by that stupid bet and couldn't reveal my identity, I would have already shown up and ordered them to break off the engagement with you. What the hell? Song Qing snorted disdainfully. As a Saint Realm expert, he had seen countless young geniuses. Yuan Ma had been pretty good before, but compared to his precious disciple, he was nothing, okay? How dare someone from Tianyu's royal family complain about his disciple's low birth, lack of talent, and lack of strength? How could he be so shameless? Did they really think that Yuan Mo was some kind of peerless steamed bun that anyone would want to take a bite out of? His disciple didn't even like her. Only the royal family of Tianyu would shamelessly refuse to annul the engagement and still feel good about themselves. As Song Qing thought about it, he felt extremely displeased. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. I know. By the way, you said that Elder Chu has recovered? Yi Qinxian's soul fragment had destroyed Elder Chu's holy brush spirit in a fit of rage. He had also been severely injured and was on his last breath when he was brought back. Who would have thought that he would recover so quickly? Yeah, he's fine now. This trip to the Kai Yuan secret realm requires a few teachers to oversee it. He's a soul master and is very strong. The branch dean invited a heavenly alchemist from the Empire of Qin's Holy Academy to treat him. He's already alive and kicking. Song Qing waved his hand nonchalantly. But you don't have to worry. He's just a small fry. I won't let him have the chance to affect your training. As for his disciple and that Shi Qingqing, your enemy, you have to be careful. Don't get plotted against inside. Song Qing wouldn't let a Soul King expert like Elder Chu, who was also a teacher, cause trouble for Luo Qingtong in the Kai Yuan secret realm. But Shi Qingqing and Zhan Haopeng were different. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.